Chapter 38. After all, the imperial palace's disciples were stationed in the Miao tribe. This not only represented that the Miao tribe had been rebuilt with an additional 2,000 men's strength, but it represented that the imperial palace had become the Miao tribe's backing. With the imperial palace's protection, the Miao tribe's future development would be much smoother. Moreover, the Miao tribe's holy maiden and the overlord's pampered daughter were brothers. Handing the Miao tribe's holy maiden over to the imperial palace, there wouldn't be any accidents. The Miao tribesmen naturally wouldn't be too worried about the Miao tribe's holy maiden. Miao Yi had sold herself to the imperial palace for a month for the Miao tribe's future. The Miao tribesmen were extremely grateful, so how could they possibly blame Miao Yi for leaving the Miao tribe at this critical juncture? When Yi Qingluo heard that, her little body pounced into Dmo Xian's arms as her arms wrapped around his neck and gave him a smack on the cheek. This man was always able to guess all of her worries, and he had arranged everything appropriately. Such a powerful man. To sweep away all the obstacles for herself. If she didn't work hard to raise her profound grade, to chase up to Dmo Xian's footsteps and work hard to walk side by side with him, wouldn't that be letting down Dmo Xian's efforts? Instantly, Yi Qingluo's fighting spirit soared as her little fists clenched tightly. I've decided, after the Nether Palace's matters are settled, we'll go to the East and South continents to get the sacred beast bead and head to the upper realm. Dmo Xian pinched her nose as he gave a low laugh. I thought you had already decided. You asked Qingyuesec's sovereign to automatically send the black tortoise sacred beast bead to me. Isn't it to let me make up my mind? Yi Qingluo shook her little head as the man's finger fell from her nose. That's not it, it's just the right timing. Dmo Xian scooped her petite body into his arms. I understand you, you're not someone who is content with the current situation. Yi Qingluo didn't struggle any further as she leaned into Dmo Xian's arms, placing her chin on his chest as she raised her head. This battle with the Palace of Darkness, this battle with the Hell Sect, I deeply understood the disparity between myself and them. If it wasn't for my God relic and profound jade heart, I would absolutely not be Nether Palace and Hell Palace's opponent. Indeed, I am not someone who is content with the status quo. I want to protect you. I want to protect my friends, just like you want to protect me. I can't hurt myself every time to make myself stronger. So, I want to make myself stronger. Her tone was sonorous and forceful, and it carried a sense of determination. A pair of charming eyes emitted a scorching luster. For pairs of eyes met, and Dmo Xian's eyes revealed a faint smile. That smile was peerless. His slender fingers were slightly cold as he gently stroked her forehead. He smiled, his tone helpless, but it was full of pampering. So, I have already sent someone to bring a letter to Xiaoyu, asking him to find the sacred beast pearl guarded by the Three Springs sect. Was this man a roundworm in her stomach? As for other matters, don't think too much about them. After you recover, I'll accompany you to the East and South continents. Dmo Xian pinched her cheeks. Don't think of sneaking in alone otherwise. If I catch you back and punish you, you know it. Yi Qingluo. She inexplicably recalled the scene last night. Her face sunk, expressing that she didn't want to understand. Chapter 39. Regarding the secluded palace's matter, the imperial palace's disciples and Peach Blossom 3000 have already joined forces to investigate. Dmo Xian could tell what Yi Qingluo was thinking as he bent down and kissed her lips. I know you can't sit still. These few days, I'll bring you to the underworld palace to have some fun. By the time we return, the secluded palace's investigation should have reached the imperial palace, then we'll consider other matters. Yi Qingluo's eyes lit up. Underworld palace? But play is play, you have to listen to me. Dmo Xian poked Yi Qingluo's forehead as he looked at her sparkling eyes, his lips unknowingly curled upwards. No problem. Yi Qingluo nodded her head vigorously. As long as she wasn't locked on the bed, taking various pills to nourish her body, nothing was a problem. Especially when she followed Dmo Xian to the underworld palace to have some fun. But Yi Qingluo's excitement and agitation vanished the next day when she followed Dmo Xian to the underworld palace, because she was trapped in the carriage, and it was escorted by Little Nine. the noble sacred beast nine-tailed fox. Not only little Nine. There were also 4 fairy-like female attendants standing around the carriage. As for her range of movement was limited to this carriage. Yiqing Luo. She had no way to resist. She wanted to have some fun at the underworld palace. She could only listen to him obediently. Sit in the carriage obediently. Yiqing Luo put on a sour face as she watched a certain overlord casually throw Xieba and Leng Yan, who were badly mutilated, without a single piece of intact skin. Leng Yan was in so much pain that he sucked in a breath of cold air. His mouth, which had its tongue cut off, kept making sounds. Xieba laid on the ground as he weakly howled. "Kill us! Kill us!" The ground was quickly dyed red by their blood. These 2 people's treatment in the imperial palace was really tragic. At this moment, 2 young men dressed in black, around 17 to 18 years old, walked over. "Allez, Ayu, bring them up." DM Mo Xian instructed the 2 youngsters as he lifted the curtains of the carriage and stepped into it. The 2 youngsters carried Xieba and Leng Yan agilely as they walked straight ahead. His speed was extremely fast, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes stared intently at DM Mo Xian as he walked towards her and sat beside her. He even stretched out his hand and hugged her into his embrace. The corners of his eyes twitched uncontrollably. "You intend to let me sit in this carriage for the entire day?" Yiqing Luo elbowed his abdomen. DM Mo Xian's large palm wrapped around her wrist. Lowering his head, his thin lips pressed against her fair neck. "I'm taking you to the underworld palace to settle the score. So." Yiqing Luo's delicate body trembled as she shrank back to avoid the man's mischief. "Although I'm a venerable sovereign, I'm taking you with me. I can't ignore the chief god's law." DM Mo Xian didn't stop Yiqing Luo from avoiding him as he tightly rested his chin on her shoulder and spoke in a low and hoarse voice. "Bringing you to the Earth realm to find trouble with the underworld palace. There must be a dignified reason." Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes. She immediately understood the meaning behind DM Mo Xian's words. Every interface had its own rules. For example, the lower realm did not allow people from the upper realm to appear. The upper realm did not allow people from the lower realm, who did not have the qualifications to go to the upper realm to appear. Like Yiqing Luo, if she was brought to the Earth realm by DM Mo Xian, it would be fine if she wasn't discovered. Once she was discovered, the balance historian had the right to detain her. Chapter 30-40. They were looking for trouble with the Hell Palace. Naturally, it would attract the attention of the people from the upper planes. Yiqing Luo's existence would naturally attract the attention of the people from the upper planes. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, DM Mo Xian had to have a reasonable reason. A reason which could convince everyone to accept Yiqing Luo, a person from the lower realm, appearing in the upper realm. In fact, to take action against the Hell Palace. DM Mo Xian could directly take action. But DM Mo Xian had taken into consideration Yiqing Luo's thoughts, so he thought of a way to bring her along to settle the scores personally. After all, when Yiqing Luo had the right to ascend to the upper realm, then she would settle the scores with the people from the Hell Palace. This heat had long passed. The Underworld Palace would also be able to completely disregard this matter. Yiqing Luo had been sleeping in DM Mo Xian's arms. But moments later, DM Mo Xian called out her name. She opened her eyes and the surroundings were pitch black space. She could faintly see a few wisps of strange aura floating in the air. That pitch black, meandering and spiraling, extended far into the distance, totally unable to see the boundary. Yiqing Luo merely used her senses to scan and understood. That was Xieba and Leng Yan's evil qi. In other words, they had already reached the Hell Palace. Yiqing Luo was slightly shocked. Was it so easy to come to the upper realm? She didn't feel any discomfort at all. Sit here properly, leave the rest to me. DM Mo Xian's gentle kiss landed on her forehead. When Yiqing Luo raised her eyes, she only saw the back view of the man walking out of the carriage. His purple robe billowed, like the rolling clouds in the black space. Silky black hair, scattered behind him. That posture, noble and elegant, like a god of the world, unattainable. The man walked out of the carriage in big strides. Ale and Ayu, the 2 guards, were already carrying the two half-dead men, standing there waiting for orders. Dmo Xian's expression no longer had any tenderness and sweetness. It was a treacherous, icy cold intent. He stood in between the guards and stopped in his tracks. Following that, his wide sleeves waved slightly. In an instant, an incomparably tyrannical energy surged forward in a direction that seemed to have no end in sight. Bam! That energy seemed to have hit the air. Endless dark force exploded in this pitch-black space. Powerful dark force enveloped the entire space. However, sitting in the carriage, Yiqing Luo didn't have any other feelings. She furrowed her brows. No matter how much Dmo Xian cared about her existence and restrained his power, it was impossible for her not to sense any energy, unless Yiqing Luo's gaze immediately fell onto those 4 female attendants who were brimming with immortal qi. Sure enough, there was a layer of faint purple light in their palms. Barrier. Dmo Xian conjured a barrier to protect the carriage. No matter how intense the battle in the outside world was, she, who was protected by the barrier, would not be affected in the slightest. Just as Yiqing Luo was in a dilemma about the enchantment, suddenly a rough voice rang out in this quiet pitch-black space. "What kind of dog is this? Do you know what this place is?" Soon after, a hole seemed to be torn open in the pitch-black space. A huge door appeared out of thin air. A middle-aged man walked out from the door. He was dirty and unkempt. That middle-aged man rubbed his nose as he walked forward with a fiendish look. When his gaze met Dmo Xian. Chapter 3041. Lord Overlord. The middle-aged man's face, which was so dirty that its color could not be seen, had now turned ghastly pale. His violent aura was also restrained. "I didn't know that Overlord had arrived. Sorry for not coming out to meet you. Sorry for not coming out to meet you." No matter how arrogant the underworld palace was, no matter how disregarding the secular world, but towards the rumors of Dmo Xian, they had heard of it. There were also many brothers who died in Dmo Xian's hands. It could be said that the underworld palace could defy the heavens, defy the earth and defy the air. But they did not dare to defy Dmo Xian. Even if Dmo Xian just stood there, without saying a word, the imposing aura from his body was enough to suppress that middle-aged man, making breathing extremely difficult. This lord is here to send 2 people to the underworld palace. Dmo Xian's deep and cold voice was emotionless, without any trace of emotion. The middle-aged man only felt his heart tightening, as he raised his head apprehensively, looking at Dmo Xian. Who are they? To trouble Overlord to send them personally. Bam! The middle-aged man's voice just fell. 2 lumps of flesh and blood were thrown at his feet. Those 2 lumps were covered in blood. When they were thrown on the ground, they hit the middle-aged man's feet, staining with a large patch of blood. The middle-aged man suppressed the urge to stretch out his feet, to kick these 2 lumps out, as he asked in confusion, This is... Save me. At his feet, the person who was nearer suddenly grabbed the middle-aged man's hand, as he spoke weakly. The middle-aged man's face sunk. With his originally irritable temperament, how could he tolerate someone grabbing his feet? Previously, when he saw these 2 lumps of bloody things, it was because these 2 lumps were brought by Dmo Xian. Now it was completely a body's conditioned reflex. The middle-aged man immediately kicked the person who was grabbing his feet and sent him flying. Ah! The bloody thing screamed as its body flew out. That bloody lump rolled several rounds on the ground. Finally, it lay face up on the ground. Under the messy hair, revealed that barely recognizable face. The middle-aged man's eyes widened as he swiftly rushed over. Lord hell! But when the middle-aged man was about to rush in front of Xiaba, an invisible force blocked the middle-aged man's path. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted. Seeing Xiaba in such a state, he was so angry that his whole body stiffened. He looked in the direction of the power. Clenching his fists tightly, he suppressed the fear in his heart and gritted his teeth. What is the meaning of this, Lord Dizun? Which is to say, you admit that these 2 people are from your hell palace. Dmo Xian's eyes were indifferent as his chilly gaze swept past him. The powerful pressure caused the middle-aged man's heart to be filled with fear. He turned his head with an ugly expression and looked at the other person who was badly mutilated. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't difficult to tell that it was Lung Yen. Lung Yen was the most destructive person in the underworld palace. When the middle-aged man saw that Lung Yen was lying motionless on the ground like a dog, the middle-aged man's face darkened. He stared furiously at Dmo Xian. I wonder how did these two from the underworld palace offend the overlord? Lord Dizun is so ruthless. This lord had personally sent them back, is to have a good talk with the underworld palace, on how your underworld palace had offended this lord. Dmo Xian didn't have the slightest intention of being courteous, as his thin lips curled into a sneer. These words made the middle-aged man's face turn pale, but when he saw the two people lying on the ground, badly mutilated. Chapter 30-42. Everyone could see that Xiaba and Lung Yen were completely crippled. Now they were still hanging by a breath. That must be because Dmo Xian used some special method or elixir, living a life worse than death. That was the heaviest punishment. Overlord, this is the Lord of Hell of our Hell Palace. How dare you injure the Lord of Hell of my underworld palace to such a state? The middle-aged man shouted angrily. Does Overlord want to declare war on the Hell Palace? Dmo Xian raised his eyebrows, but the corner of his eyes fell on the middle-aged man. That made the middle-aged man's back shiver. His fierce words and stern expression immediately disappeared. Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up slightly. He looked evil but revealed a bone-piercing chill. Lord of Hell Palace? The middle-aged man was aghast and shrunk his neck in fear. Since he's the Lord of the Hell Palace then, his actions represent the entire Hell Palace, right? Dmo Xian seemed as though he didn't see his fear as he asked indifferently with an icy smile. His tone was very calm, and there was no ripple in it. But when Dmo Xian spat out the last two words, the middle-aged man only felt that the air around him seemed to solidify. The endless coldness was accompanied by a surging murderous aura. He couldn't breathe at all under the pressure. The middle-aged man was forced to take a few steps back. His body kept trembling at a speed visible to the naked eye. What did Lord Hell Palace do to annoy Overlord? He injured this sovereign's woman. As Dmo Xian's cold voice sounded, then in the air, there suddenly surged a strong dark force. Like a stormy sea, it rushed down. The middle-aged man didn't even have a chance to react. Bang! A mouthful of blood was spat out from his mouth. His whole body suddenly flew backward. His body smashed heavily on the door, which looked like it was torn apart. Immediately, he fell heavily on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. Another deafening roar rang out. The ground collapsed. Especially where the middle-aged man fell, there was a deep mark. Old lie. All of a sudden, a few furious voices rang out from the Hell sect. Soon after, a few men who were about the same age as the middle-aged man, and were also slovenly and unkempt, rushed out. One of them helped the middle-aged man lying on the ground up. The rest of them stood in front of the middle-aged man, as they stared furiously at Dmo Xian's direction. Overlord, Hell Palace has always been indifferent to worldly affairs, so how could they possibly hurt your woman? Overlord, it's better for you to investigate this thoroughly. Dmo Xian's hands were placed behind his back in a dignified manner. His pair of peach blossom eyes glanced at those few people with a smile that didn't look like a smile. His gaze, however, as soon as it landed on those people, suddenly, Dmo Xian's robes fluttered without any wind. Powerful and majestic energy followed closely behind and shrouded him. Bang, bang, bang. Just like the middle-aged man, those people were sent flying by the attack. On the ground, a few people were scattered all over the place. If he could make a move, he would definitely not make a fuss. Dmo Xian couldn't even be bothered to look them in the eye. You. The middle-aged man was originally seriously injured by Dmo Xian, and on seeing Dmo Xian's barbaric action, he was so infuriated that he spat out another mouthful of blood. You're simply too much. The people from Hell Palace were arrogant and despotic, and cruel to the extreme. They had never suffered such humiliation before. Unexpectedly, the legendary Overlord. Chapter 30-43. Bully intolerably? Dmo Xian narrowed his shimmering peach blossom eyes as he held in a faint smile and murmured these four words. Those few people from Hell Palace only felt an ominous premonition pervading their hearts. Their bodies instinctively wanted to escape. But the next moment, another raging surge of profound energy came surging over. Everyone only felt a burst of tearing pain all over their bodies, tearing them apart. The few of them screamed out in pain at the same time. Since you all feel that this lord is bullying intolerably, if this lord doesn't accept these 4 words, wouldn't it be letting down your judgment of this lord? DM Ocean's icy cold voice was filled with chilliness. Those few people, how would they dare to open their mouths to refute? Those few people sprawled on the ground and curled up for a while. The middle-aged man, who was addressed as Old Lai, slowly supported himself against the wall behind him and stood up. DM Ocean, what exactly do you want? Please say it directly. He gritted his teeth as his scarlet eyes widened, suppressing the rage in his heart. DM Ocean raised his brows disapprovingly. This lord just wants to bully others intolerably. Those few people's faces sunk, and all of them had an angry and embarrassed expression. But due to the disparity in strength between themselves and DM Ocean, they couldn't flare up at all. If it was any other ordinary person injuring their Hell Palace's people, even if they had to perish together, they would join hands to kill the other party. But the other party was DM Ocean, the rumored, mysterious and honorable Lord DM Ocean. Just based on DM Ocean's effortless strength, he had already pushed the group of them to the ground, and even suffered internal injuries. They wanted to join hands to gang up on DM Ocean. This was an impossible matter. Moreover, it was highly possible that their act of joining hands would infuriate DM Ocean, and he would wash the Hell Palace with blood. There must be some misunderstanding. Lord DM Ocean, please investigate clearly. Old Lai clenched his teeth, trying his best to make his tone sound more gentle. The few of them didn't forget to sneak a glance at the side, at the carriage that was covered by white muslin. Vaguely, they could see a slender figure sitting in the carriage. She must be the Overlord's woman. Old Lai's eyes flashed, and he suddenly knelt down in the direction of the palanquin. Madam, the Underworld Palace has been cultivating in the Underworld Palace recently, and has not harmed anyone. Speaking until here, Lao Lai paused. Then he turned his gaze to Evil Tyrant and said, the only time I've been able to go out is when Lord Hell and Lung Yen descended to the lower realms to repay the favor they owed me over the years. He raised his head carefully and looked in the direction of the sedan. Lord Hell and Lung Yen are heading down to the lower realm to settle some matters. They definitely won't hurt Madam. In the eyes of the people from the Underworld Palace, she was able to become the Overlord's woman. It was impossible for him to be someone from the lower realm. Xie Ba and Lung Yen had gone to the lower realm to take care of some matters. How could he have offended the Overlord's woman? This is definitely a misunderstanding. Your Majesty and Madam, please investigate this. Lao Lai added. As he spoke, he kowtowed a few times. Dong 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 sounds. Yi Qing Luo felt pain in her ears. Her slender brows rose slightly. This Underworld Palace really cared about their brotherly ties. Evil Tyrant and Lung Yen had become crippled, thrown right in front of them. They had never thought of giving up on these 2 crippled people. They were still trying their best to speak up for these 2 crippled people. She curled her pink lips, as her chilly voice floated out from the muslin. Chapter 3044. Old Lai's kowtowing action halted. The others were also stunned. Their gazes swiftly shot towards Xie Ba and Lung Yen. Lower realm? The Overlord's woman ran down to the lower realm, and coincidentally met Xie Ba and Lung Yen. Towards Xie Ba and Lung Yan's character, they had been together for many years, so they naturally understood it. Even in the lower realm, once they didn't follow their wishes, hatred could possibly lead to a huge battle. This time, Xie Ba and Lung Yen had offended the Overlord's woman? Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, those Hell Palace's people who thought it was a misunderstanding kept their mouths shut, not daring to open their mouths. Since the Lord of Hell Palace hurt my woman, then it means that your Hell Palace is targeting my woman. DM Ocean squinted his long peach blossom eyes. Those few didn't dare to reply. Hurt my woman, shouldn't I settle the score with you? Dmo Xian's lips curled upwards as endless cold rays and terrifying aura revolved around him. Hearing Dmo Xian's high-sounding reason, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing. Based on Dmo Xian's character, he would absolutely wipe out the Hell Palace directly. But in order to take care of her, he used the most complicated method. He only wanted to pave the way for her to personally take revenge. Looking at the man's tall and broad back view, Yiqing Luo's eyes curved as she couldn't hide the happiness and sweetness. However, Yiqing Luo felt happiness and sweetness. But to the few Hell Palace's people, this was simply a death sentence. The few Hell Palace's people slowly gathered together. Their expressions congealed as they occasionally looked towards Xieba and Leng Yan, who were sprawled on the ground. Their hearts were silently pondering on how to settle this matter. It was just to return a favor to the lower realm. How did they offend the Overlord? The Hell Palace's people who had always dissed the heavens and earth felt helpless. Just at this moment, a voice filled with hatred came nearer. That slut, what kind of madam is she? She's just a slut from the lower realm. As that voice got nearer, in the dark space, a white-robed lady who was filled with fairy-like aura swayed as she walked over. The lady was dressed in white gauze and her jet-black hair was fixed with a jade hairpin. As she approached, through the veil, Yiqing Luo could see the lady's face. She was exquisite, young and very beautiful. That's right, Mei, who should have died in the battle between the Miao tribe and the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo remembered. Under her design, Mei and Yan Zhenfei were squashed into meat patties by the group of semi-finished corpses. Plum actually escaped? Then where was Yan Zhenfei? People from the mortal world? Lao Lai noticed Mei's choice of words and asked with a frown. Mei's venomous gaze swept across Yiqing Luo's carriage. Yes, she's from the lower realm. How can someone from the lower domain come to the earth domain? Lao Lai seemed to have found a breakthrough. His expression suddenly froze. Your Excellency, this is against the rules. Heh. A light and sweet-sounding sneer came from behind the veil. The girl's lazy voice was filled with endless disdain. Could it be that the Lord of Hell of the Underworld Palace going to the lower realms and attempting to destroy them and devour their space is in line with the rules? You. Old Lai's face turned red, unable to refute. Yiqing Luo. Mei's venomous voice interrupted the conversation between Old Lai and Yiqing Luo. Step by step, she neared the carriage. Finally, she stood in front of the four maids. Chapter 3045. Balanced Historian? When these four words came out from Mei's mouth, Hell Palace's people's faces turned black. Once the Balanced Historian arrived, not only the Overlord's woman couldn't escape, their Hell Palace's people couldn't escape the crime of sneaking into the lower realm to create trouble. Who are you? How dare you come to the Hell Palace to create trouble? Old Lai immediately targeted Mei as he gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. You keep saying that the Overlord's woman is from the lower realm. Since she's from the lower realm, how did you know? How I know is not important. Mei stared at Yiqing Luo coldly. What's important is, she's a lowly person from the lower realm. She's not fit to stand beside the Overlord, nor is she worthy for the Overlord to back her up. The last part of the sentence. Mei's words were squeezed out from the gaps of her teeth. She totally didn't conceal her jealousy and resentment. Pa! The crisp sound of a slap rang out. Mei's body was smashed into pieces as she flew backwards and hit the ground. Alei stared at Mei and said coldly, Shut up. How dare you insult the Imperial Palace's future mistress? Half of Mei's face was swollen from the slap, and there was even a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Imperial Palace. Future mistress. Ha ha ha. Mei let out a low laugh. While murmuring these words, he laughed like a madman. She laughed and laughed. Her laughter became extremely strange. Suddenly Mei raised her head, her deep black eyes fixed on Dmo Xian. Overlord. These are your personal guards, their attitude is your attitude. Future mistress. Was promised to her by you. Am I right? Dmo Xian's eyes were fixed on Dmo Xian. His eyes were so dark that not even the slightest hint of emotion could be seen. It revealed some urgency and craziness. Faintly, she could sense a flash of pain and despair in that pair of eyes. Diemo frowned slightly as his peach blossom eyes turned, but he had no intention to look at Mei. But Yiqing Luo could see a trace of impatience from Diemo eyes, but he seemed to be apprehensive about something. She could tell. Diemo didn't want to waste time with Mei. But, apparently, Mei had completely lost her mind. Seeing that Diemo did not reply in time, she then took a few steps towards Diemo direction. His young and delicate face was twisted with madness. Overlord, she's just a lowly person from the lower world. She'll only be a burden to you if she stays by your side. She's just using your power to achieve her own goals. She doesn't deserve you. She doesn't deserve you. She screamed hysterically. His ferocious and terrifying pupils were bloodshot. She approached Diemo. She raised her hands and tried to hug Diemo. But just as Plum was 3 steps away from Diemo, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Diemo. It was Ayu. The young man, who was dressed in a tight suit, raised his leg and kicked Mei's chest without hesitation. Ayu did not show any mercy in this kick. The kick made Mei wail in pain. She fell to the ground. A crater was formed on the ground. Mei's 5 viscera and 6 bowels were shaken to the point that they were about to split open. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Why? Just because she's young. Just because she's beautiful. Mei screamed unwillingly. Her voice was hoarse and she coughed out a big mouthful of blood as she screamed. Chapter 3046. She doesn't have any ability and only knows how to rely on your power to put on airs in the lowly lower realm, committing all sorts of atrocities. What right does she have to stand by your side? Mei roared and roared as she suddenly burst into tears. Why? I've waited for you for so long. So long, you're not willing to take a look at me. A sudden sobbing tone. It made Yiqing Luo stunned. Through the veil, Yiqing Luo could clearly see that Mei's horribly distorted face, which could no longer be restored, with 2 streaks of tears, crying pitifully. Yiqing Luo. This was simply too out of place. But it was precisely because of Mei's uncontrollable performance that Yiqing Luo was almost certain of the guess in her heart. Mei's words. It made Diemo expressionless handsome face gradually turn gloomy. That pair of deep and watery peach blossom eyes flashed past a sharp glint. But Mei apparently didn't notice the change in Diemo emotions. She covered her own face as she scolded Yiqing Luo viciously and like a white lotus, pitifully crying about her feelings towards Diemo, while belittling Yiqing Luo to be worthless. While she was narrating, if she were to stand by Diemo side, what kind of benefits and help would she bring to him? Diemo brows creased tighter and tighter. The formless energy fluttered his robe. The powerful aura was incomparably overbearing. Just as Diemo was about to fly into a rage, a clear voice was heard. Whether I'm worthy of Axian or not, that's between me and Axian. What has it got to do with you? Mei's voice paused as she swiftly stared at the sedan. Since you're sincerely seeking guidance on why should I stand by Axian's side then? I shall be merciful and tell you. In the sedan, the young lady's voice rang once again. That voice was like a pearl falling onto a plate, extremely pleasing to the ear. Under the white veil, Mei seemed to see a pair of torch-like eyes, deadly, staring at her without blinking. The moment she was stared at by that gaze, Mei always felt an indescribable chill seeping into her skin, spreading from the bottom of her heart. Her body was trembling uncontrollably. Because Axian loves me. Yiqing Luo said it word by word, extremely slow and clear. Mei's eyes widened, and her pupils contracted little by little. A ruthless killing intent surged in his eyes. She staggered back a few steps and shook her head hysterically. He doesn't love you. He definitely doesn't love you. He's just playing with you. Just playing with you. Of course, it's not just because Axian loves me. It's also because I'm young. Because I'm beautiful. Because I'm stronger than you. Yiqing Luo totally disregarded Plum's crazy howls. He was still smiling as he continued to attack Mei. As for the benefits and help you can bring to Axian, I don't think it's important. Yiqing Luo lazily leaned against the back of the soft chair as her voice revealed a languid tone. Based on Axian's ability, he totally doesn't need your help. May's ferocious face twisted crazily again. Her scream turned into a roar. He looked extremely terrifying and irritable. Splash! I'll kill you! Kill you! May howled crazily. Her stomach full of grievances made her completely lose control as she pounced towards the sedan. The four maids immediately got into a defensive posture. Just as May pounced over in rage, the smile in the sedan grew even more intense. Chapter 3047. By May. These two words were like thunder, exploding in May's mind. Her body, which was pouncing towards Yiqing Luo, suddenly froze on the spot. May raised her head abruptly. Her bloodshot eyes stared at Yiqing Luo. What did you call me? By Mei Fu. When she said these three words, she purposely dragged out the word fu, and immediately stopped and chuckled. I'm sorry, I've forgotten that you're no longer the teacher of the Heavenly Academy's class of God. You. May seemed to have been poked at the most unbearable wound. She immediately pointed at Yiqing Luo angrily. What master? What Heavenly Academy, little slut? Don't try to change the topic. Isn't that so? Yiqing Luo tilted her head and gave a sarcastic smile. Initially, I wasn't too sure about my own guess. But other than Bai Meiyu, this old woman, who else would care about their own age like Xian? Just now, Meiqing Luo had screamed hysterically, saying that Yiqing Luo had used her youth and beauty to seduce Dmo Xian. This made Yiqing Luo, who originally suspected that Mei was Bai Mei, even more certain of her guess. Only Bai Mei would care about her age in front of Dmo Xian, because previously, in order to diss Bai Mei, she deliberately used Bai Mei's age to make Bai Mei vomit blood. When she saw Mei, Yiqing Luo had always felt that Mei was very strange. Especially that face, which totally didn't match her temperament. It was especially out of place. Speaking of which, Bai Mei really worked hard for Dmo Xian. She didn't hesitate to abandon her charming face and put on a young and beautiful face. Did she really think that Dmo Xian was that kind of shallow man? Mei. That was Bai Mei, gloomily looked at Yiqing Luo. Little slut, did you think that by exposing my identity, the Overlord will punish me because of this? Unfortunately, you are wrong. As if she had caught the only pride, Bai Mei's eyes flashed a trace of excitement. The Overlord will only forgive me because I am Bai Mei. She was indeed Bai Mei. Since Yiqing Luo saw through her, she might as well not refute. Anyway, even if Yiqing Luo did not expose her, after the balance historian captured Yiqing Luo away, she would also take the initiative to confess her identity to Dmo Xian. She hated her identity as Bai Mei. She hated that body that was in her 30s. However, in order to use the name Bai Mei in exchange for his life, he had no choice. She had to confess. However, now it was Yiqing Luo who was the first to reveal it. Bai Mei stared at Yiqing Luo as her eyes shone with a cunning chill. In the sedan, the young girl listened to Bai Mei's words. Her long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly. This was not the first time that Bai Mei had relied on her status to firmly believe that Dmo Xian would not do anything to her. What did Bai Mei rely on? Was this the so-called sister that she had mentioned? That sister. Between her and Dmo Xian, although she believed that it was not a particularly ambiguous relationship between a man and a woman. But what kind of unknown past did her man have with another person of the opposite sex? Regardless of whether it was ambiguous or not, more or less, he would feel uncomfortable in his heart. Especially when Bai Mei had been using her own sister to continuously provoke Dmo Xian's bottom line. This Bai Mei was really shameless to the extreme. Yiqing Luo was thinking about how to dispel Bai Mei's idea of using her own sister to make her presence known. Chapter 3048. Bai Mei was feeling complacent because Yiqing Luo didn't retaliate. Suddenly, he felt a surge of dense, profound energy, biting cold, surging down violently. At this moment, how could the heavily injured Bai Mei possibly dodge this horrifying power? Her entire body was flipped over. In the air, there were bursts of exploding sounds. Bai Mei felt as if her internal organs, limbs, and bones were being torn apart by something. It was so painful that she sprawled on the ground, screaming miserably. This scene made Yiqing Luo raise her brows as she sat up straight. Her gaze, through the veil, shot straight to that noble and elegant figure. It was Xian. Xian's face was cold, without any extra emotions. His icy cold face revealed a trace of sharpness. A pair of deep black peach blossom eyes, as dark as the sea. Bai Mei, do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? His icy cold voice was filled with chilliness. Bai Mei laid on the ground in a sorry state, her petite body twitching from time to time. You kill me, sister will not let you off. Whoever hurts little Luo. I will not let any of them off, even if it's her, it's the same. Xian was expressionless. This sentence, it made Bai Mei want to rely on her sister's words, to be stuck in her throat. Her eyes suddenly turned red. She was clear. Whatever Xian said, he would put it into action. The meaning in Xian's words was already very clear. As long as it was related to Yiqing Luo, even if her sister came personally, he would absolutely not be soft-hearted, and would not tolerate it. Not knowing if it was the heartache or the pain in her body, it made her hands curl up. Tears rolled down from her eyes. Xian flicked his sleeves, too lazy to take another look at Bai Mei. His peripheral vision shot a glance towards Ayu's direction. Ayu understood, flew up, and directly carried Bai Mei on her shoulder. Bai Mei was still grieving, when suddenly being carried by Ayu. Instantly that twisted face became even more twisted from the pain. Her voice was hoarse, and she struggled hard. Your Majesty, are you really going to hurt the relationship between you and my sister for a lowly person from the mortal world? Big sister has always doted on me the most. Big sister will never forgive you for treating me like this. I will never forgive you. Her screams, her struggles. She did not receive any attention from Xian. Xian's peripheral vision had not even fallen onto her. Instead, he looked straight ahead at the people from the underworld palace who were supporting each other as they crawled up from the ground. This exalted one wishes to perform a blood sacrifice for the underworld palace to support this exalted one's woman. Everyone from the underworld palace should have no objections, right? Although he meant it as a question, but his tone was clearly a statement. In other words, he wasn't asking for the opinions of the people from the underworld palace. It was just a symbolic notice. The expressions of the people from the underworld palace changed dramatically. All of them widened their eyes and moved their mouths, but they were unable to utter a single word to refute Zhang Xian. They had experienced Dizun's brutality. If he retorted, who knows, another round of vicious beatings. The people of the underworld palace were feeling apprehensive. On the other side, Bai Mei, struggling on Ayu's back, gradually stopped. Suddenly, she started crying and laughing crazily, looking at Xian. Xian's attitude had already told her very clearly, don't try to use her sister's name to make him compromise. To him, the most important was only Yiqing Luo. Anyone else, even if it was his sister. Chapter 3049. Bai Mei, whose heart was like dead ashes, laughed and cried as she collapsed on Ayu's shoulder. Other than laughing and crying crazily, she had quietened down. Xian's gaze had never looked at Bai Mei. He slowly narrowed his eyes as he looked at the row of burly men in front of him. Then he strode forward and walked into the underworld palace's entrance. Old Lai and the rest looked at each other. All of them wanted to stop him, but their feet had just moved. Xian's entire body carried a berserk force as he was sent flying. Rumble. A huge cracking sound was heard, splashing mud and stones all over the ground. The pitch-black space was filled with terrifying and shocking energy. It was like a level 12 tornado, sweeping up everything in its surroundings. The Hell Palace's main door was directly blasted open. Xian's steps were steady as he stepped into the Hell Palace bit by bit. Behind him, Ale carried Xiaba on one hand and Leng Yan on the other. Ayu was carrying Bai Mei, following which, they walked towards the Hell Palace. Little Nine raised his neck, shaking the snow-white fur on his body. Only then did he take graceful steps, pulling the carriage and following behind. The four maids also followed closely behind. Just like that, the group of people swaggered into the underworld palace. The Hell Palace was indeed as its name suggested. Rather than saying it was a mansion, it was more like an underground cave. The entire underground cave was extremely spacious. It looked eerie and extremely terrifying. After stepping into the Hell Palace, the surroundings were no longer that pitch-black space like before. On both sides of the rock wall, there were 2 candlesticks every 10 over steps. On the candlesticks, there were candles inserted diagonally. The candles were bright, elongating everyone's shadows. Of course, if these candles were ordinary candles, Yi Qingluo would absolutely not think that this was terrifying. What made her curious was the candles on both sides were burning with a kind of almost green light. The entire Hell Palace was filled with a kind of faint green feeling. This green light was mixed with an extremely damp and cold aura. The sizzling sound of burning could be heard. Yi Qingluo seemed to have smelled a strange smell in the air. It made her extremely disgusted. What the hell? What kind of candle is this? Why is the color so strange? And it gave people such a strange feeling? Especially when his line of sight touched the candlelight. There was always a very uneasy feeling in her heart. In this uneasiness, she subconsciously stretched out her hand and touched the cherry blossom pattern on her wrist. The skin he touched was smooth and shiny. The bright red cherry blossoms on her fair wrist were extremely obvious. The azure dew bracelet was still on her wrist. She thought that back then, she had risked her life to stall Xiaba and forcefully break the blood contract with the azure dew bracelet. But when she woke up, the veined pattern of the azure dew bracelet was still on her wrist and hadn't disappeared. Yi Qingluo's eyes stared fixedly at the azure dew bracelet for a long time. Although the azure dew bracelet was still there, but Old Man Song was no longer there. Not only Old Man Song, she couldn't sense anything related to the azure dew bracelet. If it weren't for the fact that the azure dew bracelet's vein patterns were still there, she really thought the azure dew bracelet had already dissolved its blood contract with her, and no one knew where it had gone. If Old Man Song was still here, he would definitely tell her what these candles were. But she couldn't contact Old Man Song. Was Old Man Song angry at her? Angry at her stubbornness? Chapter 3050. Lil Luo, or what's the matter? A man's low hoarse voice suddenly rang beside her ear. Yi Qingluo raised her head abruptly. A figure brushed past her eyes. Her petite body suddenly felt light as she was brought into a broad embrace. The man's arm encircled her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder. A warm breath lightly sprayed on the skin of her neck. Why are you suddenly feeling down? Unhappy? Yi Qingluo's body leaned back slightly as she changed into a more comfortable position in the man's embrace. Her slender little hand hooked one of his fingers as she played with it, thinking of Old Man Song. She didn't hide it as she lowered her eyelids and said softly, "My willfulness hurt his heart. He should be angry at me. Don't let your imagination run wild." Dmo Xian turned his head and kissed her cheek. Old Man Song dotes on you so much. How would he bear to be angry at you? The azure dew bracelet's response has disappeared. Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips as she raised her right hand. The circle of bright red cherry blossom petals was the same as usual, without any change in them. But only Yi Qingluo could sense the change within. Dmo Xian's slender fingers clasped her wrist. His slightly calloused fingertips gently caressed the patches of red lines. In order to stop the Hell Palace's people, you made a move on the Sacred Maiden Institute. That's indeed reckless. Dmo Xian opened his mouth and gently bit her neck. His low hoarse voice had a trace of displeasure. You forcefully wanted to dissolve the azure dew bracelet's blood contract. This not only affected the azure dew bracelet, your spiritual body will also be affected. Adding on to that, you forcefully activated the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, and the two overlapped. It has far exceeded the burden your body can bear. It's already a miracle that you're still alive now. As for the azure dew bracelet, after being tormented by you, it definitely needs to undergo self-repair. Naturally, you're unable to sense the azure dew bracelet's energy. After explaining, Dmo Xian raised his hand and knocked Yi Qingluo's head hard. After the azure dew bracelet is repaired, Old Man Song will naturally look for you. Yi Qingluo rubbed her little head into his embrace. Her little act of acting cute did not make Dmo Xian reduce the strength in his hands. He knocked on her head again. Do you still dare to be willful in the future? I don't dare. Yi Qing Luo purposely cried out in pain as she shrank her little head. Remember what you said. This time round, Mo Xian's hand encircled her slender waist again as he leaned close to her ear. If there's a next time, I'll continue for the third time. Yi Qing Luo. Did he mean to give him a taste of his own medicine? She worried him. Was he going to let her worry for once? Why don't I feel the same way? Was there a need to be so overbearing? There was only a white veil hanging around the sedan. Although they couldn't see what was happening inside clearly from the outside. However, he could vaguely see the figure under the veil. The shadows of the two embracing each other, and the occasional chuckle. The eyes of Bai Mei, who was lying quietly on Ayu's back like a corpse, like stagnant water, trembled slightly. Jealousy spread from the bottom of her eyes. Mo Xian and his entourage swaggered into the Hell Palace. Old Lai and the rest naturally followed behind them with small steps. They didn't dare to get too close. They were also afraid of losing them. The entourage walked like this for about the time it took to burn a stick of incense. Chapter 30:51. On the way, they passed by at least 20 over candles. After seeing those green candlelight, the uneasy feeling in Yi Qing Luo's heart grew stronger. The man's large palm gently pressed on her shoulder as he whispered, "I'm here." Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and met the man's deep and warm eyes. Her charming eyes slightly curved in. She could feel that something was wrong with the candlelight. How could Mo Xian not feel it? Mo Xian said it was fine. Then it must be fine. I will let you settle the debt with them personally. Mo Xian whispered into her ear in a low and hoarse voice. Yi Qing Luo was tickled and her petite body trembled as she rubbed her head against his shoulder. Bai Mei has informed the balance historian. Will it cause you trouble? Your business has never been troublesome. Mo Xian curled up a strand of her hair and twirled it around his fingertip as he gave a low laugh. As for currently, other than you, I have not met anyone who dares to find trouble with me. TSK. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she stared at him. The first sentence said I'm not your trouble and the next sentence became me finding trouble with you men. As she said that, she shook her head and sighed. Mo Xian's eyes were filled with pampering as he pressed her little head with both hands to stop her from shaking her head. Just as he was about to kiss her, suddenly, there was a commotion in front. Immediately in front, more than 10 figures were rushing over. Those 10 over people carried a horrifying aura. Along with their approaching speed, the entire Hell Palace was swept up by a strong hurricane. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed as her little hand pressed against Mo Xian's chest as she sat up straight and looked over. She saw a bunch of dirty and sloppy-looking people rushing over from the corner ahead. Their speed was extremely fast and without the slightest hesitation. Their aura was domineering and ferocious. At the same time, Old Lai and the rest who had been following behind, not daring to get close, seemed to have been reborn as they joined the 10 over people in a pincer attack as they swarmed over. In a split second, the earth shook. The air in the entire Hell Palace seemed to be swept up by mud and stones. The surging strength chi surged violently, surging like a dragon, producing a sharp explosive sound. This sudden attack. Ayu and Ale could only choose to quickly put down the things they were carrying and respond quickly. The underworld palace had at least 20 people in total. Moreover, when they started fighting, they were so crazy that it seemed like they would die with you at any moment. No matter how high Ayu and Ale's profound rank were. In the face of such a large number of people and their ferocious fighting style, both of them were struggling. The maids around the carriage stood where they were, not showing any signs of interfering. Lao Lai and the others wanted to take the opportunity to attack the sedan. He had yet to get close. He was thrown out by the 4 maids at the same time. The few of them roughly understood. These 4 female attendants were only protecting Yi Qing Luo alone. As long as Yi Qing Luo was in danger, then they would take action. Looking at the sudden outbreak of battle in front of him, Mo Xian's hand which was locked on Yi Qing Luo's waist tightened slightly as a low laugh escaped from his mouth. Interesting. Saying that, he had already let go of Yi Qing Luo and stood up. Wait for me in the carriage. The corners of his lips curled up into a magnificent smile. Diemo-xian's footsteps had just stepped out of the carriage. The gauze curtain, which was originally dancing wildly due to the energy, actually drooped down at this moment, as though there was no wind blowing in the surroundings. Chapter 30:52. It was an enchantment. Once again it protected her in the carriage. Yiqing Luo looked at the man's tall back as she squinted her eyes. It looked like Diemo-xian intended to use the Hell Palace to test his ability after his advancement. If not for the protection of this enchantment, facing the surrounding wave after wave, surging waves, she absolutely could not take it. Not knowing, how long could these people from Hell Palace last? Yiqing Luo leaned lazily against the back of the chair as she paid close attention to Diemo-xian's actions. Old Lai and the others were heavily injured, and after Diemo-xian and the others barged in, they could only use their special communication method to inform the Hell Palace's bunch of lunatics about this matter. Old Lai's original intention was to let them take the opportunity to escape, but this bunch of lunatics had always been arrogant and haughty. Now they had come knocking on their doors. How would they be able to tolerate this? Immediately, 10 over of them charged over. Old Lai saw that he couldn't stop them, so he could only make use of their Hell Palace's current condition to speedily recover his injuries and coordinate with those 10 over men's attack. A sudden pincer attack. If they were lucky, they might really be able to subdue Diemo-xian. But they had belittled Diemo-xian and thought too highly of themselves. The moment Diemo-xian walked out of the carriage, the surging profound energy in the surroundings started to settle down bit by bit. Following his slow steps, his purple long robe drew out rolling purple clouds, shimmering with splendor. The frozen air was also shattered along with it, like bursts of waves spreading out in circles. The majestic aura turned into several huge dragon shapes as it surged in the surroundings, winding and spiraling. Hell Palace's people and Ayu and Alei's ferocious attacks. Under this valiant profound energy's oppression, they were forced to the point where they were unable to move. Hell Palace's people's expressions were malevolent and steely green. There were quite a number of people whose eyes had unknowingly revealed an astonished look. Diemo-xian slowly raised his hand. That slender jade-like fingers had distinct joints. Under the dim green candlelight, on the contrary, it made that finger look like a work of art, as though it was bewitching people to take a bite. But in the eyes of Hell Palace's people, no matter how beautiful or how tempting, those hands came from the depths of hell, hands that claimed their lives. Lao Lai's cold eyes darkened. His big palms suddenly pressed down on the strange candles on both sides. It was as if he couldn't feel any pain in his palm at all. He pressed it directly on the dark green candle flame. Immediately, Old Lai clenched his fist. An evil and sinister aura surged from his body. Take Lord Hell and Leng Yin away. I'll clean up the mess. At the instance when the evil chi surged, Old Lai's fingers suddenly clenched tightly as he fiercely threw a punch towards Diemo-xian's direction. Diemo-xian narrowed his long and narrow peach blossom eyes. The smile at the corner of his mouth gradually turned cold. He raised his hand and slowly but smoothly drew a mark. Dark force condensed in the air, following the movement of his fingers, lingering. All of a sudden, a glaring purple ray shot out from Diemo-xian's palm. The tyrannical profound energy did not hold back in the slightest as it directly attacked. Carrying the dark force, it was like a stormy sea, surging unceasingly. Boom! The entire underground cave was plunged into an earthquake. The surrounding dark green candlelight flickered and flickered incessantly. This made the Hell Palace even more eerie and strange. Dong! Chapter 30:53. Boom! Dark rays bloomed from his body. Smoke and dust billowed and the air billowed. Everyone could vaguely see. Old Lai was lying in a huge pit. His chest was pierced by the profound qi. Fresh blood oozed out from the hole. Old Lai was in so much pain that his whole face was twitching. What made the people from Hell Palace feel a chill was Lao Lai, who had a hole poked through his body, was actually still alive. Did the Overlord not let him die? The people of the Underworld Palace considered themselves to be the most abnormal among the lunatics. Seeing Diemo-xian, they finally understood deeply. There would always be someone stronger than him. The Overlord had never thought of taking their lives. He wanted them to live a life worse than death, struggling on the edge of fear and death. Bit by bit, their gazes shifted to Evil Tyrant, Lung Yen and Old Lai. Suddenly they broke out in cold sweat. All their attention was focused on Dmo Xian and the people from Hell Palace. No one noticed. A slender figure swayed as she walked in the direction of the carriage. She swayed unsteadily, her steps unsteady as she moved with great difficulty. The carriage was moving without any wind. The white muslin of the four maids danced with the wind. Suddenly, the girl in the sedan gently tapped her fingers. That invisible gust of wind instantly calmed down. The slender figure swayed as she finally approached the carriage. She held her breath and controlled her breathing, so that the maidservants guarding the sedan wouldn't notice her. The maid's gaze was fixed on Dmo Xian. It seemed that he didn't notice her approaching. The slender figure widened her eyes, which were filled with malevolence, and stared at the young girl in the sedan with a twisted and hideous expression. Suddenly, the figure shook violently. He turned into an afterimage and directly pounced toward the carriage. The white muslin dress dispersed in the air like smoke. But that figure rapidly charged toward the palanquin. He was only one step away from the palanquin. The four maids who were staring at Dmo Xian suddenly raised their right hands at the same time. A purple light floated. The majestic and overbearing profound energy shrouded the entire carriage. The slender figure collided with the purple energy. The heart-wrenching pain instantly eroded the slender figure's senses. The veil hanging from the palanquin fluttered slowly. Vaguely, the young girl's exquisite and beautiful face was revealed. The corner of the young girl's mouth curled into a mocking sneer. Her beautiful face was also filled with ridicule. She leaned against the soft chair lazily. 3,000 strands of black hair scattered behind her. Then, the young girl's eyes curved and her pink lips curled up. She stared at the slender figure in front of her and slowly said, "Bai Mei, don't act like a clown. Don't overestimate yourself." Bai Mei was sent flying by the barrier and smashed into the ground with a thud. Hearing Yi Qingluo's sarcastic words, Bai Mei clenched her teeth tightly as she suddenly raised her head and stared at Yi Qingluo resentfully. That beautiful face that could topple a city. That mocking smile. That disdainful attitude toward her. Bai Mei's facial features became even more twisted. Anyway, she was going to die today. She had no intention to go back alive. To be able to bring Yi Qingluo, this slut, to hell before she died. That was enough. Bai Mei clenched her fists tightly as she slammed the ground and forced herself to climb up from the ground. The madness and jealousy in her eyes seemed to be nourished as it kept growing. Chapter 3054. Through the veil. Yi Qingluo could clearly see Bai Mei's changes, especially when she saw the black qi overflowing from Bai Mei's eyes. Her slender brows creased slightly. As expected, this Bai Mei's body had already been implanted with the evil qi which belonged to the Palace of Darkness. This gush of evil qi. It was totally similar to the evil qi which was used to control Miao Rongrong. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes as she sized up Bai Mei seriously. Bai Mei could change into a young and beautiful face. It should be the credit of the Palace of Darkness. And the reason why Bai Mei followed Yin Zhenfei and Fox Sacred Law. It was probably a deal to change her face. Bai Mei was used by the Palace of Darkness, based on the Palace of Darkness's temperament. The Palace of Darkness would absolutely not change Bai Mei's face properly. That face which Bai Mei had changed. It must have been tampered with. Today, seeing Bai Mei's look, everything was as Yi Qingluo had predicted. Bai Mei's face was the source of that sinister aura. The Palace of Darkness wanted to make use of Bai Mei. To achieve what motive? Yi Qingluo had just expressed this question. Very quickly, Bai Mei gave her the answer. Endless black qi overflowed from Bai Mei's eyes continuously. She was like a puppet which was being controlled by someone, swaying but not slowing down as she charged madly towards Yi Qingluo. When Bai Mei's body collided against the floating purple light once again, she actually pressed her face hard onto the enchantment which was formed by the faint purple light. The purple light moved, like bolts of lightning, speedily shooting towards Bai Mei's face, rumbling downwards. But balls of black qi, from the surroundings of Bai Mei's face, started to seep out bit by bit. That strange black chi was like a magnet, firmly sucking on the enchantment. The entire enchantment was filled with purple electric currents, and it was twined with circles and circles of black chi. Apparently, Bai Mei wanted to forcefully break Di Emotien's enchantment. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes as she looked at the black chi which was still seeping out, persistently twining around the enchantment. Bai Mei's face was already twisted in agony. However, the black gas continued to spread. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched as she narrowed her charming eyes, reflecting a cold ray of light. In any case, you were once a master of the Heavenly Academy, but now you have fallen into the devil's path. TSK. As she spoke, she shook her head in disdain. I heard that the teachers of the class of God are all from the upper realm, but now they have abandoned themselves and are entangled with the lower realm, the Dark Palace. I really don't know if your mysterious sister will regret not strangling you when you were born. Bah! The face that was stuck to the barrier suddenly moved a few inches away from the barrier. Bai Mei raised her eyes and stared at Yi Qing Luo with a venomous gaze. What right do you have to mention my sister? You don't deserve to mention her. Bai Mei was provoked. The moment his face left the barrier, the black gas that was originally twisting and moving, rising and spreading, with an extremely fast speed, he quickly stopped breathing. Bai Mei also came to a sudden realization. She quickly pressed her face against the barrier again. But Yi Qing Luo didn't give her this chance. Yi Qing Luo intentionally used words to provoke Bai Mei, to distract her. She then took the opportunity to stop Bai Mei from using the evil qi to engulf the enchantment. Just as Bai Mei's face was about to be pressed down, Yi Qing Luo's fingers moved. The glower flame fan flew out from her fingertips. It turned into a whirling flame. Chapter 30:55. She cried out in pain as she swiftly retreated to avoid the glower flame fan. But the glower flame fan had already drawn a bright red wound on her cheek. Endless black chi seeped out along with the blood. When Bai Mei was a few steps away from the enchantment, Yi Qing Luo's fingers moved. That raging flame which was swirling in midair immediately returned to Yi Qing Luo's hands. Bai Mei covered her face as her scarlet poisonous eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo vigilantly. But no matter how vigilant Bai Mei was, compared to Yi Qing Luo's speed, she was far behind. Bai Mei didn't see clearly what Yi Qing Luo had done. She only felt that her body seemed to be bound by something. Her forelimbs were unable to move, and that thing which bound her was tightly squeezing her skin, making her feel a piercing pain. Ugh! It was another thing which seemed to embed into her bone marrow. Bai Mei gave a dull moan. She was in so much pain that her eyes were blurry as she stared at Yi Qing Luo. But she saw Yi Qing Luo holding the glower flame fan as her fingers flicked from time to time. Every time Yi Qing Luo's fingers moved slightly, Bai Mei could feel that the thing which bound her four limbs had turned into a sharp blade, cutting her bones. Suddenly, a dazzling light pierced her eyes. Bai Mei's eyes widened as she squinted her eyes. Following that dazzling light, her vision slowly shifted. This time she discovered the thing which bound her was not something else, but strands of silver threads that were as thin as black hair. There were at least 5 to 6 strands of silvery strands. They were shot out from the glower flame fan in Yi Qing Luo's hands. No matter what. You were once a master of the Heavenly Academy, as a student of the Academy. Naturally, I can't leave you in the lurch. I'll help you take down this face. Yi Qing Luo's clear voice was mixed with ridicule and laughter. Her fingers swept forward. Bai Mei clearly heard a swoosh sound in the air. Following that, she felt a cold touch on her face. It was silvery strands. Bai Mei's face turned pale instantly. Blood seeped out and stained the silvery strands on her face. How dare you? How dare you touch my face? Bai Mei's scarlet eyes were filled with resentment. Yi Qing Luo had no doubt that at this moment, the silver threads of the glower flame fan had not restrained Bai Mei. Bai Mei would definitely pounce on her and fight her hand to hand. Bai Mei had sacrificed too much for her young and beautiful face. She wanted to be young and beautiful. She wanted to obtain Di Emotien's love because of this. How could she allow anyone to touch her face? Facing Bai Mei's hysterical madness, Yiqing Luo remained calm and elegant as the corners of her lips twitched into a smile. Why wouldn't I dare? As for Bai Mei, she did not have the slightest bit of sympathy for a face. He was willing to abandon his dignity as someone from the upper world and join the Dark Ghost Palace, mixing with the motley crew of the Dark Ghost Palace. He had repeatedly caused trouble for her, hurt her brother. Most importantly, she was really annoying. There was another woman who wanted her man. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with an icy chill. Her fingers moved, and the silver thread that was as sharp as a blade started to slowly cut open Bai Mei's face. Swoosh. Suddenly, a piece of black object flew towards Yiqing Luo's hands. That momentum was extremely ferocious. It carried a strong and austere aura, like a sudden clap of thunder, like a surging wave. Chapter 30:56. Who is it? The four maids who were standing still on the four sides of the carriage suddenly rushed in front of Yiqing Luo. These four maids had noticed Bai Mei's actions right from the start. They didn't make a move because of Yiqing Luo's obstruction. They were clear that Bai Mei was not Yiqing Luo's opponent. But this sudden burst of energy, it aroused their vigilance. One of the maids swiftly waved her palm to meet that irresistible force and split it apart. Ka! A slight sound was heard. That thing was split apart by the maid. It turned into a piece of drifting, as though it didn't have any lethality, and slowly floated downwards. Yiqing Luo fixed her eyes on it. That was actually a piece of leaf. That's right, an ordinary piece of leaf which was split into two. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. She had indeed heard that if the profound energy was strong enough, even water could be condensed into a sharp blade, taking a person's life. A piece of leaf as a hidden weapon. It wasn't impossible. But just how powerful could a person be to be able to use a piece of leaf to create such a powerful energy? The speed of the spinning was extremely fast. She couldn't even tell that this was just a piece of leaf. If it wasn't for her body's instinctive reaction towards danger, there was a possibility that she wouldn't be able to avoid it. Who was this person? Why did he make a move on her? Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she shifted her gaze away from the leaf. Sister, sister. Bai Mei's ecstatic voice suddenly rang. This roar could almost shake the entire Hell Palace. Bai Mei struggled to climb up from the ground as her eyes stared in that direction joyfully. Sister, you're here to save me. You're here to save me, right? Sister? These two words made Yiqing Luo's ears buzz for a moment. Her vision trembled. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Dmo Xian. She knew clearly that Dmo Xian and Bai Mei's sister had no ambiguous feelings between a man and a woman. But she heard Bai Mei showing off in the name of sister, once or twice. It would be a lie to say that she didn't feel uncomfortable. At this moment, the sister, who heard Bai Mei's call, had really appeared. Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with an indescribable complicated feeling. She pursed her pink lips slightly and looked in the direction that Bai Mei had gone in. This look made Yiqing Luo slightly stunned. The domineering female boss that he had imagined did not appear in front of him. It was just a thin figure that seemed to have merged with the air, faintly discernible. Yiqing Luo, who had seen Old Man Song reveal his spiritual body, could tell at a glance that that frail figure was a spiritual body. Bai Mei's sister was a spiritual body? Why are you here? Just as Yiqing Luo was filled with doubts, behind her came the man's low and hoarse voice. There was no emotion in that voice. But Yiqing Luo could tell. The man's voice was much gentler than before. In other words, was that spiritual body really Bai Mei's mysterious elder sister? Mayor has caused you trouble. The voice of the spiritual body was very gentle. It was the kind of gentleness that was unique to Jiangnan women. It was very natural and definitely not intentional. Sister, how could you help them speak ill of me? Look at me now. That slut. Not only did he snatch the overlord away from you, he even beat me up to this state, and even wanted to cut my face. You have to help me take revenge. Chapter 30:57. Her sister was here, not to back her up. Instead, she was speaking up for those who bullied her. How could Bai Mei accept this? Mei, The spiritual body's voice was very soft, as gentle as water. She called out Bai Mei's name. As her gaze shifted to Bai Mei's face, Yi Qingluo also saw the spiritual body's face clearly. That face was extremely beautiful, elegant and refined, without a speck of dust. A pair of pure and gentle beautiful eyes stared at Bai Mei indifferently, which made Bai Mei unable to say a single word. The spiritual body's lips curled as she spoke gently. The relationship between my sister and the Overlord has never been what you think. The Overlord has never belonged to me. She paused for a moment, as her gaze became increasingly gentle, like a warm spring breeze blowing against her. Even though the spiritual body's vision wasn't looking at Yi Qingluo could feel the warm breeze blowing against her. Following that, she heard the spiritual body's gentle voice ringing. Moreover, you've done something wrong, so being injured is a lesson for you. If you know pain, then think clearly where you've done wrong, then you will naturally not get injured again. Sister. Bai Mei pursed her lips tightly, totally disagreeing with her own sister's words, but she couldn't say a single word of rebuttal. When Yi Qingluo saw this, she couldn't help but have goosebumps. Bai Mei had an 18 or 19-year-old young lady's face, but in actual fact she was already over 30 years old, and could be considered as an auntie. She even put on a delicate look, acting coquettishly towards her own sister. Didn't Bai Mei feel embarrassed? Or, she had a young lady's face. Did she really treat herself as a young lady? To think that Bai Mei's sister could still maintain her gentle face, without any change in her emotions, facing her younger sister who was pretending to be young. If you still don't know where you've done wrong then, the injury on your body isn't considered serious. The spiritual body interrupted Bai Mei's words. I'm still not considered serious. Bai Mei's eyes turned red from anger, as resentment and anger spread in her pupils. That scoundrel wanted to ruin my face, wanted to cut my face, and even caused me to be seriously injured. Do you think that it will only be serious if I die? Bai Mei clenched her fists as tears welled up in her eyes. I know that for the sake of the Overlord, you can abandon me, your little sister. I've been alone for so many years, and I've endured it. It doesn't matter if I have you as my sister or not. Mei. The spirit body's gentle voice revealed a hint of choking. Her voice trembled as she stared at Bai Mei, her eyes filled with grief and helplessness. Bai Mei closed her eyes, as if she was suppressing the emotions in her heart. Then she suddenly opened her eyes, turned around, and walked in the opposite direction of the spiritual body. You abandoned me for the Overlord. Now, to please the Overlord, you don't even care about your sister's life. So it's my turn to abandon you. It's my turn to abandon you. Bai Mei's turn was swift and decisive. Yi Qingluo stood at the angle of the carriage. Coincidentally, he saw the expression on Bai Mei's face when she turned around. Obviously, Bai Mei's words were sonorous and forceful, with righteous words. Her tone was choked with sobs, as if she couldn't bear to part with it. But on Bai Mei's face, there wasn't a single bit of reduced heartache expression. On the contrary, her eyes were slightly raised, filled with ridicule and sarcasm. Chapter 3058. Obviously, Bai Mei's sudden crying scene was deliberately poking at her sister's most guilty spot. It was to evoke his sister's guilt. Thus he could avenge her. Yi Qingluo scoffed. This Bai Mei had even schemed against her own sister. He wondered just how shameless she was. That was why she was able to use her sister's name to show off in front of Dmo Xian. However, Yi Qingluo saw through Bai Mei's little scheme. However, after hearing Bai Mei's words, Bai Mei's elder sister, the spiritual body, revealed a look of grief that could not be dispelled. She pursed her pale lips and looked at Bai Mei's back as she left. Her elegant and refined face was shrouded in melancholy. His body also seemed to be fusing with the air, becoming increasingly transparent. Mei air, that's not what Big Sister meant. The spirit body hurriedly said, full of worry. Big Sister knows, it's Big Sister who shouldn't. Before he could finish his words. But she was interrupted by a deep voice, Baisu. That voice forcefully stopped the spirit body from speaking. The spiritual body speedily turned around, and its eyes, which were stained with tears, looked at Dmo Xian. What are you doing here? Xian frowned. The spiritual body, which was Baisu, had a slight change in her gentle expression. Very soon, she became gentle again and looked at Xian with her watery eyes. Xian, I'm just worried about my sister. She's not a bad person by nature. Xian's frown deepened as his lips twitched. Yiqing Luo, looking at this spiritual body called Baisu, talking to Xian so gently, why did she have a very strange feeling? This feeling was completely different from the previous uncomfortable feeling. For some reason he felt that Baisu was not as gentle as she looked. Xian's obstruction. All the plans of Bai Mei, who had been snickering in her heart and waiting for Baisu to coax her, were disrupted. In the direction that Bai Mei was heading. It was the direction of the Underworld Palace's group. If she continued to walk forward, she would be delivering herself into the hands of the people from the Underworld Palace. If she retreated, didn't his performance in front of Baisu go to waste? Bai Mei's face was ferocious. She gritted her teeth and cursed Baisu in her heart. How dare you say that I'm not an admirer of His Majesty? Once His Majesty has spoken, even my sister has given up trying to persuade her. It was at this moment. The people from the Underworld Palace suddenly exchanged glances with one another. Then they leaped at the same time. Bai Mei was originally injured because of Yiqing Luo. Suddenly, he was surrounded by a group of stinky old men. His hands, which hadn't been washed for a long time, were clasping her limbs. Ah! Bai Mei let out a shriek. It was a scream. It immediately attracted the attention of Xian and Baisu. Baisu stared at Bai Mei for a long while. Bai Mei screamed and wailed, "Sister, sister, save me." Only then did Baisu's gentle and beautiful eyes move slowly. Her spirit body quickly floated forward and said worriedly, "Mayor, don't be afraid. I'm here." The surrounding Yiqing Luo expressed that she really couldn't understand this woman called Baisu. If Baisu was really as worried about Bai Mei as she appeared to be, she could totally take action. Chapter 3059. As long as Baisu made a move, those lunatics from Hell Palace would not be able to use Bai Mei to threaten her. But Baisu did not make a move. She was like a delicate white lotus, her eyes and mouth full of worry, expressing her concern for Bai Mei. Baisu's attitude. This made the two men from Hell Palace who were restraining Bai Mei to reveal a joyful expression. It looked like they had caught the right person. With this thought in mind, the men from Hell Palace tightened their grip on Bai Mei and even drew out a dagger and pressed it against Bai Mei's neck. All of you leave Hell Palace, otherwise I will kill this woman." The men from Hell Palace had already grasped onto the last straw, staking everything on this one throw. Originally they wanted to use a sneak attack to restrain Xian. Unexpectedly, Xian's power had already reached an unfathomable level. They would never be Xian's opponent. Moreover, there was another spiritual lady with unfathomable power. How were they going to protect Hell Palace? Although the woman in their hands seemed to have some conflict with the Overlord's woman, but she was the younger sister of another spiritual lady. If they could make use of this woman in their hands to incite the spiritual lady and the Overlord to kill each other, they would be able to reap the benefits of the third party. With this thought in mind, the expressions on the men from Hell Palace became more and more sinister. "Quick! Leave Hell Palace, bring your men and leave immediately." Baisu's eyes were filled with tears, her little hands clenched tightly as she trembled. You can't hurt my sister. Sister, sister, save me. I don't want to die, I don't want to die." Bai Mei felt the blade on her neck almost cutting through her skin as she cried out for help in fright. Baisu was also very anxious. Her eyes were red as her spiritual body floated around in the air with an anxious look. "Sister will save you, don't be afraid, I only have you as my sister, I will never let you die." Her words made the eyes of the men from Hell Palace suddenly lit up. They were even more certain that this woman in their hands was enough to threaten the Overlord and that spiritual lady. "It's not impossible for us to let this young lady go." Hell Palace's men shot a glance at the gloomy-looking Xian. As long as you stop the Overlord, I'll let her go." Baisu's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. She turned her head and looked at Dmo Xian behind her as her lips trembled. Overlord. Yi Qingluo seemed to see Dmo Xian's lips twitching even more violently. Baisu covered her face with her hands and continued to speak in a voice as gentle as water, with a hint of eagerness and helplessness. Di Zun. Can you? No. Dmo Xian interrupted Baisu's words without any hesitation, as his face was expressionless. The people from Hell Palace, since they dare to provoke this lord's woman, then they should pay the price for their actions. Baisu paused and looked at Bai Mei worriedly, and then immediately looked at Dmo Xian. She clasped her hands together, looking like a worried white lotus. All right. Good. Since the Overlord doesn't want to keep this woman alive, I'll kill her. Hell Palace's men saw the hesitation in Baisu's heart, and wanted to provoke Baisu, so they increased the strength of the dagger in their hands. Blood seeped out from Bai Mei's neck and dyed the sharp dagger red. Chapter 30-60. Baisu's slender body froze. She blinked her eyes and tears welled up in her eyes, but they did not fall. She choked with sobs. How can I bear to see you die? You are my only sister. Mare, I will save you. I will not let you die. Bai Mei felt a stabbing pain in her neck, and the feeling of blood flowing out made her face feel itchy and painful. This tormented Bai Mei so much that she wanted to reach out and grab it. But she had just raised her hands. The people from the Hell Palace pressed her down hard. She was so itchy that her whole body was writhing. She was in so much pain that she drew in a cold breath. Bai Mei even felt that her face was about to break away from her face. This realization made Bai Mei widen her eyes. Her facial features twisted as she gnashed her teeth and cursed Baisu. She had given up everything in exchange for this face. She must not lose this face. This face belonged to her. Even if she had to die, it could only belong to her. Bai Mei's crazy and ferocious actions made the people from the Hell Palace unable to hold her down. The people from the Hell Palace had already suffered today's encounter. In a short while, the 3 leaders of the Hell Palace had been tortured into a ball of flesh and blood. And they had been arrogantly bullied by Dmo Xian in their territory. They had been suppressing their anger for a long time. Now Bai Mei was still trying to break away from their control. The people from the Hell Palace had a vicious look in their eyes. They directly waved the dagger in their hands and pinned Bai Mei's hands on the rock wall. Ah! Bai Mei screamed. The dagger pierced through her wrists and went straight into the rock wall. The sharp pain almost made her faint. The loss of blood made the skin on her face itch and hurt. She felt like her face was being torn apart, and the skin that she wanted to get rid of surged even more. Mei, Baisu exclaimed. Her gentle voice was trembling. The Dmo Xian wants to settle the score with you. What's the use of venting your anger on my sister? Or do you think that by torturing my sister, you are helping the Dmo Xian's woman solve unnecessary trouble? Are you trying to plead with the Dmo Xian's woman? No, let me tell you, this is absolutely impossible. The people from the Hell Palace. This idea seemed to be not bad. The Dmo Xian's woman was not on good terms with this woman. If they killed this woman for Di Zun's woman, they could use this opportunity to plead with Di Zun's woman. In the carriage, Yi Qingluo, who was receiving all the naked gazes. Why did she get dragged into this for no reason again? Did Baisu really want to save Bai Mei? Why did she feel that Baisu was purposely reminding the people from the Hell Palace? Yi Qingluo expressed. He had originally thought that this woman might be a love rival. Then he added the White Lotus attribute. She would have to fight for at least 300 rounds. But why she felt that this woman, who was a rival in love, was so likable? Madam. The reason why the Underworld Palace injured Madam is because we didn't know that those bastards from the Palace of Darkness had schemed against us. Now, Lord Hell has been crippled, and Lung Yen has also become a cripple. Madam, please be magnanimous and spare Hell Palace this time. Hell Palace is willing to owe Madam a favor. Hell Palace's people were indeed very tactful as they immediately started to plead for leniency towards Yi Qingluo. Chapter 30-61. Yi Qingluo. They had obviously come to settle the score with the Underworld Palace and take revenge. Why did it feel like the direction was getting more and more crooked? Her eyes twitched as she looked at Diemo Xian. Diemo Xian's expression was also very ugly, as his shimmering peach blossom eyes were surging with undercurrents. He looked at Baisu with his dark and deep eyes and frowned slightly, as if he was very dissatisfied with Baisu. Very quickly, he detected Yi Qingluo's line of sight. He shifted his gaze towards the carriage. Through the veil, their eyes met. Yi Qingluo's peripheral vision glanced at the people from Hell Palace as she mouthed, "What do you think we should do?" Her lips had just stopped moving. The veil fluttered, and a gentle current of air blew over. It was as if a man's large palm was caressing her face. Beside her ears, the man's deep and husky voice was mixed. "Everything is up to you." His voice fell. The gentle airflow dissipated in the air. However, the gentle touch on her cheek, as well as the elegant sandalwood scent, still lingered on her face and nose. Diemo Xian brought her to the underworld palace, prepared to let her settle the debt properly and properly. It was considered as killing the chicken to warn the monkey, informing everyone that he, Diemo Xian, had a woman whom he regarded as a treasure. But Diemo Xian probably did not expect it. Bai Mei, who was supposed to have died on the battlefield of the Miao tribe, was still alive. She had even followed them to the underworld palace and caused so much trouble, messed up all their plans. It wasn't just the historian of balance who was rushing over. Even the mysterious elder sister that Bai Mei had mentioned appeared in the form of a spirit. At present, Yi Qingluo couldn't feel whether Baisu was a friend or foe to her. But what Yi Qingluo could confirm was, the relationship between Baisu and Diemo Xian was extraordinary. However, she did not understand Baisu's attitude towards Bai Mei. If Baisu really loved Bai Mei, naturally, she would not really take Bai Mei's life. Although she didn't really like Baisu. But he didn't hate it. She would never lay her hands on Bai Mei just because of the relationship between Baisu and Diemo Xian. Diemo Xian said that everything was up to her. In other words, he was telling her that it didn't matter if she wanted the people of the Underworld Palace to kill Bai Mei or if she wanted to take revenge on the people of the Underworld Palace. He would clean up the mess. There was no need to care about anyone else's thoughts and opinions. Having said that, however, she really could not bring herself to cause conflict between Diemo Xian and Baisu because of Bai Mei. He pondered for a while. Yi Qingluo made a decision in her heart. She raised her head and looked at the people from the Underworld Palace. The moment she opened her mouth, she forcefully closed it again. Because she did not need to worry about whether she should save Bai Mei's life from the hands of the people from the Underworld Palace. Just as she was deep in thought, the people from the Underworld Palace took her silence as a tacit agreement. Without any hesitation, he nailed Bai Mei to the wall. Endless fresh blood slid down the rock wall. Yi Qingluo. Was there a need to be so savage? The few people from Hell Palace were still trying to claim credit, as they begged for Yi Qingluo's forgiveness. Yi Qingluo turned her head stiffly as she looked at Baisu expressionlessly. "I'm sorry, no matter if you believe it or not. I didn't want them to kill Bai Mei." "I don't blame you." Baisu's spiritual body suddenly floated back to Diemo Xian's side. These 4 words, when Yi Qingluo heard it, why did she feel that something was amiss? Wait a minute. Chapter 3062. Baisu's spiritual body floated out of the carriage. There was a barrier between them. At this distance, Baisu could see the girl's stunned expression behind the gauze curtain. Baisu raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Don't look at me like that. I will think that you have a crush on me." Saying that, she shifted her gaze towards Diemo Xian. "If Diemo Xian knows that I have seduced his beloved woman, he will kill me." Yi Qingluo. Why did the scene suddenly change? At this moment, Baisu's face was no longer as gentle as water, like a white lotus. Obviously, it was the same face, the same style. But her temperament had undergone an earth-shaking change. At this moment, the spiritual body standing in front of Yi Qingluo, that originally elegant and refined face exuded an extremely flamboyant sense of beauty. It had a charm that made people unable to look away. In addition, Baisu's flamboyant and domineering eyes were full of aura. There were only 4 words left in Yi Qingluo's mind. "Queen. Don't doubt me, I am Bai Mei's elder sister. The woman behind Dmo Xian. Bai Su brushed her hair. Yi Qingluo. What the hell was woman behind? Bai Mei has been with me since she was born. I was the one who personally brought her up. In her heart, her older sister is a gentle person who emits motherly love. So, for the sake of my pitiful younger sister, I must maintain this image in front of her. Bai Su shrugged and explained helplessly. Yi Qingluo's mouth twitched. For Bai Mei, she disguised herself as a white lotus? Since she loved Bai Mei so much. Bai Mei was nailed to the rock wall, but as her elder sister, not only did she not show any sadness, she even had the mood to joke with her? I have a lot of things to do. I don't have time to teach her how to behave, so she became like this. Bai Su glanced at Bai Mei, who was still bleeding and nailed to the wall. As long as she's still alive, I don't care how you torture her. Yi Qingluo. This elder sister was really speechless. Wait a minute. Just now, Bai Su said. As long as Bai Mei was alive, she could torture her however she wanted. In other words, Bai Mei was not dead? Bai Su. Dmo Xian strode over and glanced at Bai Su coldly. Take her away, don't be an eyesore. She was referring to Bai Mei. Bai Su spread out her hands. Her gorgeous face and imposing manner were not inferior to Dmo Xian at all. Dmo Xian boy. Did you think that I came all the way here and took the risk to send my spiritual body to the earth realm, just to save my poor sister? Dmo Xian glanced sideways and looked at her with a smile that didn't look like a smile. It seemed to be asking, otherwise. Bai Su snorted and rolled her eyes. She doesn't have enough power to make me come all the way to the earthly realm to save her. His tone was filled with disdain. Yi Qingluo really didn't feel that. Bai Su liked her sister. Dmo Xian was expressionless as he lightly said, speak. In front of your little beauty, you're even more docile than little Nine. Why is it that when you see me, you're so cold and heartless? Bai Su touched her face with her fingers and said, don't tell me. I'm not as beautiful as your little beauty. Chapter 3063. Bai Su's teasing smile froze on her face. Immediately, a layer of anger covered her face bit by bit. She went berserk and raised her palm towards Dmo Xian's direction. Brat! I dare you to say these 3 words again. Even in the enchantment, Yi Qingluo could clearly feel it. That palm of Bai Su was really merciless. Bringing along the raging waves, it was totally going to swallow Dmo Xian completely within the rhythm. Dmo Xian didn't move away, nor did he have the slightest intention to counterattack. Until that palm fell head-on and covered Dmo Xian within it. Yi Qingluo's slender brows knitted slightly as she suddenly got up from the soft chair. She raised her hand and her slender fingers rested on the gauze curtain. As she was about to walk out of the carriage, one of the maids swayed and used her hand to stop her movement. Yi Qingluo's brows knitted even tighter as her charming eyes turned icy cold as she looked at the maid. Suddenly, a purple light in front of her attracted her attention. The palm wind dispersed and Dmo Xian's tall figure appeared in front of Yi Qingluo. Dmo Xian's body was surrounded by a layer of faint purple light. His eyes were calm as he waved his sleeves. The purple light on his body and the profound energy surrounding him dispersed in an instant. Speak quickly, don't disturb me. Dmo Xian frowned slightly impatiently. After that, he turned his gaze towards Yi Qingluo. He seemed to sense that Yi Qingluo wanted to walk out of the carriage. His thin lips curled up as he shook his head at her slowly. His thin lips moved as he spat out 2 words, wait for me. Seeing that Dmo Xian was safe and sound, Yi Qingluo heaved a sigh of relief. Her line of sight had been lingering on Dmo Xian and Bai Su. She was imagining the relationship between the 2 of them. Bai Su's expression was icy cold as her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Apparently, she was still annoyed by those 3 words from Dmo Xian. Hence, she put on a straight face and said dryly, the matter you asked me to investigate has some progress. Also, Qinggu also brought me a few pieces of news, and asked me to inform your little beauty. Qingwu? Jun Qingwu? Yi Qingluo heard this name and immediately asked, what news did little Qingwu ask you to bring me? Ever since Tinyu Palace appeared, he had sensed that something was wrong with it. Jun Qingwu specially went to the upper realm to investigate the people behind the Palace of Darkness. After investigating for such a long time, Jun Qingwu had yet to return. She was still thinking of finding an opportunity to inquire about Jun Qingwu's news from DMO Xian. You guessed it right. The people behind the Palace of Darkness are indeed from the upper realm. Baisu did not beat around the bush and said directly, "It's just that we don't know who that person is, but we can be sure that there are already many forces from the upper realm joining the Palace of Darkness." Baisu paused and looked at DMO Xian, which is to say, Palace of Darkness wants to replace the Imperial Palace's position in Nirvana realm. In the eyes of the people from the upper realm, isn't the Nirvana realm a lowly existence? Why would they be interested in the lower realm's powerhouses? Yi Qingluo asked puzzledly when she heard that. As for this, we can't find anything at the moment. The person behind this is hiding too well. Baisu shook her head, narrowed her beautiful eyes and guessed. Perhaps, because the young Di Zun is in the Nirvana realm, those people think that there is something special about the Nirvana realm. This explanation. To tell the truth, it sounded like it made a little sense. But it was really too far-fetched. Yi Qingluo pursed her lips and closed her eyes as she quickly replayed all the recent actions of the Palace of Darkness in the Nirvana realm in her mind. Chapter 3064. I remember, the Dark Forces wanted to invade the West Continent. It was to use the West Continent as a base for their own development. Yi Qingluo looked at DMO Xian. Palace of Darkness, I'm afraid it's also the same idea. Palace of Darkness wants to invade Nirvana realm? Baisu understood the deeper meaning behind her words and asked in surprise. To put it bluntly, even if the 4 continents joined forces, they are not a match for a city in the Earth realm. The person behind the scenes of Palace of Darkness is an extremely powerful person in the upper realm. Why would they take the risk of disrupting the balance of the lower realm and be targeted by the main god to invade Nirvana realm? Baisu analyzed and shook her head. I feel that your guess is wrong. If the people from the upper realm are really not interested in Nirvana realm, then they wouldn't keep appearing in the lower realm. Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes and said solemnly, according to Xiao Qingwu and Miss Bai's investigation, it can be confirmed that the person behind the scenes of Palace of Darkness is an influential person in the upper realm. If it's really like what you think, the people from the upper realm look down on the lower realm. Why would the person behind the scenes spend so much effort to control the development of Palace of Darkness? Baisu was stunned. Yi Qingluo said, what's more obvious is the Dark Forces. I've crossed hands with the Dark Forces, and I'm very clear of their character. Their Dark Forces were once a small force outside of the 4 realms, and had their own kingdom. But now, they willingly joined the Palace of Darkness, and became a subsidiary force of the Palace of Darkness, obeying the orders and arrangements of the Palace of Darkness. Among them, either the people from Palace of Darkness promised the Dark Forces something which was more tempting than having their own kingdom, or the Dark Forces and Palace of Darkness have the same goal. This point, right from the start, Yi Qingluo had this feeling. With the same goal and the same enemy, joining forces was the best solution. Yi Qingluo said, Palace of Darkness's ambition is huge and not what we see now. Moreover, I feel that there's another reason why Palace of Darkness started from Nirvana realm and slowly developed their own forces. But I'm still unable to verify it. Baisu's gaze swept past Yi Qingluo's wrist. What you mean is, Nirvana realm has something that Palace of Darkness wants. Invading the Nirvana realm and developing your forces is just a superficial reason? Yi Qingluo. She instinctively pulled back the hand that was wearing the Azure Dew bracelet. Why did he feel that Baisu seemed to be hinting at something? Somehow, he felt like he was emphasizing. There was something on her that the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness wanted. Could it be that Baisu recognized the Azure Dew bracelet? Now that you've delivered the message, get lost. DM Mo Xian's cold voice interrupted Baisu's question. Baisu rolled her eyes and said, I came all the way here. Even my poor sister is dying because of you. Do you want to dismiss me like this? DM Mo Xian squinted at Baisu with his emotionless eyes. Baisu's smile was unparalleled. She was completely unafraid of Demo Xian's cold face. Yi Qingluo, who was in the carriage, was speechless when she heard Baisu's flippant tone. What she could be sure of now was the relationship between Baisu and Demo Xian was definitely very close. Their relationship was even closer than that of the Imperial Palace's granny. Chapter 3065. To be able to maintain a smiling face under Demo Xian's expressionless gaze. Except for her. Perhaps only Baisu could do that. Even the Imperial Palace's old granny would be cautious when interacting with Demo Xian. It could be seen that the relationship between Baisu and Demo Xian was better than she had imagined. What else do you want? Demo Xian frowned slightly. The balance historian will be here soon. Baisu raised her brows disapprovingly. So be it. What else can they do to me? After that, she looked into Demo Xian's icy cold peach blossom eyes, and the smile on her face deepened. Demo Xian brat, you are in such a hurry to drive me away. It can be seen that you are very clear about what I want to do. Demo Xian's brows furrowed even tighter. His peach blossom eyes were also suffused with a deep cold light. Baisu covered her mouth and giggled. Don't worry, we have cooperated for so many years. How can I tear down your stage at this time after all? We are on the same boat. Baisu deliberately lowered her voice when she said the last sentence. Using a deliberately seductive voice, she opened her mouth gently. The voice was very soft, but it was also within the range where Yi Qingluo could hear. These words simply couldn't be more ambiguous. Yi Qingluo couldn't help twitching her eyes as she listened by the side. She felt that as the Empress of Demo Xian, shouldn't she express something? Declare sovereignty or something? But, listening to Baisu's deliberate words, it was obvious that she deliberately wanted to provoke her reaction. Or, wanted to tease Demo Xian? Sure enough. Just when Yi Qingluo's mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts, Demo Xian's expression suddenly darkened and turned ugly by several degrees. That pair of deep and cold peach blossom eyes was also covered with a layer of coldness. Do you want me to send you back personally? His voice was icy cold. Baisu's teasing smile froze at the corner of her mouth, and her lips twitched. Sure enough, having a wife is different. Now you can't even make a joke. Are you so afraid that your little beauty will be jealous? While saying that, she threw a coquettish look at Yi Qingluo's direction. Little beauty, are you jealous? Yi Qingluo indicated that she didn't want to bother with her. Demo Xian knitted his brows tightly and said word by word, Baisu. Baisu raised her hands and said, Okay, I'll go back now. Before he finished his words, suddenly, cries of alarm rang out from the surroundings. The people from the underworld palace began to shout in panic. This sudden change made Baisu and the others quickly look in the direction of the voice. At this moment, the dozen or so people from the underworld palace were pointing at a spot on the wall in fear. Their bodies were shivering. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes and through the veil, she saw the direction which they were pointing at. It was Bai Mei, who was pinned to the rock wall. The dark green candle flame flickered, elongating Bai Mei's silhouette. The green candlelight shone on the girl's stiff body. It was also clear. It reflected the shocking scene in front of them. The dark green candlelight on the rock wall gathered in Bai Mei's direction one by one. The endless green light seemed to form a green barrier that covered the young girl's body. No, to be more precise, his face. Bai Mei's face seemed to be rotting gradually. Pieces of flesh started to fall off from Bai Mei's face. Bai Mei's face, using the words too horrible to look at, badly mutilated, was not enough to describe her terrible state. Even Yi Qingluo, who was used to seeing blood. Chapter 3066. But it was merely the numbing of her scalp. For this bunch of lunatics from Hell Palace, they themselves were bloody and brutal perverts, so they should have been used to this kind of scenario. Why did Hell Palace's people not care about their image as they cried out in terror, their faces filled with terror? This question, Yi Qingluo didn't have the chance to ask. Everyone's attention was focused on Bai Mei at this moment. In just the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, Bai Mei's badly mutilated face slowly peeled off from her face under the dim green candlelight. At the instant when the skin on her face peeled off, that bloody face was swiftly shrouded by the dim green candlelight. In a split second, the entire Hell Palace was engulfed by a gust of chilly air. That chilly air carried a bone-piercing chill, so strange that it made one's hair stand on end. Hell Palace's people retreated backwards in fear as they tried to escape. But they had just taken a step. A gust of dim green air wave blocked their way. When this air wave appeared, Hell Palace's people's faces turned deathly pale. Hell Palace's people's attitude made Yiqing Luo creased her brows. Her gaze kept lingering on those candles. Apparently, Bai Mei's change, as well as the skin peeling off from her face, were all caused by these strange candles. Ever since she entered Hell Palace and saw these candles, she had an extremely uncomfortable feeling. Somehow, she felt that these dim green candlelight were extremely horrifying. Yiqing Luo finally fixed her gaze on one of Hell Palace's people. Those candles. What are they made of? That Hell Palace's people who were pointed out hugged their heads, as they shook their heads furiously. Their faces were filled with terror, unable to say a single word. This confirmed Yiqing Luo's guess. These are all ghost flame candles. Dmo Xian looked at Yiqing Luo as he spoke calmly. Ghost flame candles? Yiqing Luo was unfamiliar with this name. Ghost flame candles? Bai Su crossed her hands as she rubbed her arms. No wonder I sensed such a dense evil qi the minute I entered. So, these candles are actually ghost flame candles. Bai Su saw Yiqing Luo's puzzled expression as her spiritual body suddenly stuck towards the direction of the rock wall. Then he stretched out his hand. The transparent finger was embedded in a candle flame just like that. Bai Su tugged hard and threw the candle into Yiqing Luo's arms with a look of disgust, while explaining. The ghost flame candle is a person's life force, the candle flame that is ignited. In the end, the candle was caught by the maidservant outside the sedan with her bare hands. She held the maid's hand. Yiqing Luo took a closer look at that candle. When the will-o-wisp candle was on the wall, other than the strange flame, it looked like a normal candle. However, when it fell into the hands of the maidservant, the candle was extremely sticky. It was like a puddle of green goo that formed a candle. Even if he was thrown into the hands of the maidservant, the candlelight was still burning. The dark green candle flame blended with the green liquid. No matter how one looked at it, it was disgusting. Yiqing Luo also saw it clearly. The place where the candlelight was burning was in the shape of a human bone, ghastly white. The dark green light came from the holes in the mouth, eyes, and nose that were shaped like white bones, which were burning. Up close. Chapter 3067. The one who created this kind of ghost fire candle didn't use corpses but living people. Bai Su's tone turned gloomy when she said this. Making use of living people's desires, using a special method to turn them into candles, then using a special method to extract their life essence, to form the candle flame. Bai Su's explanation was very simple, and left out a lot of details. However, anyone could hear the bloodiness and brutality in it. Turning living people into candles. Using human life essence to form candle flame. How sinister was this to be able to do it? Ever since they entered the Hell Palace, there were at least 200 to 300 ghost fire candles. And this was only half of the journey to the Hell Palace. Hell Palace's bunch of lunatics. Really cruel to the extreme. We didn't want to. The Hell Palace's people could feel Yiqing Luo's icy cold gaze through the veil, as they were so frightened that they started wailing. This is all. All the idea of the Palace of Darkness. We were all schemed by the Palace of Darkness. The Hell Palace's people had the intention to destroy the Palace of Darkness. Mentioning the Palace of Darkness, Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. This ghost fire candle and the Palace of Darkness were related, probably because their hearts were already corroded by the fear. Yiqing Luo's tone only increased slightly. The Hell Palace's people then explained the entire sequence of events while wailing. Their Hell Palace implemented the policy that everyone could become the Lord of Hell. Every month, they would carry out a change of the Lord of Hell. And not long ago, it was an important day to change the Lord of Hell. On the day when the elected Lord of Hell became the Lord of Hell, in order to express his generosity after becoming the Lord of Hell, he left the Hell Palace to buy some food and drinks to celebrate. This trip he didn't return for a day. The Hell Palace's people found the Lord of Hell who was covered in blood, and on his last breath at the back mountain of the Hell Palace. The Hell Palace's people were instantly infuriated. Their Lord of Hell had just become the Lord of Hell, and he was ambushed. If they were any later, the Lord of Hell would have died here. Wasn't this a blatant challenge to their Hell Palace's authority? But no matter how angry they were, the Hell Palace's people didn't manage to find out who was the one who injured the Lord of Hell. Lord Hell's injuries were simply too severe, and he was about to die. Suddenly, a person who claimed to be Yuhan came, and said that she had a way to save Lord Hell. The people from the Underworld Palace were also desperate. Seeing that Yuhan was alone, young and weak, he agreed to it. Yuhan had used the ghost fire candle to save Lord Hell. Not only was he saved, but Lord Hell's strength had also increased greatly after he woke up the next day. Such a strange thing. How could the people of the Underworld Palace, who had always pursued strength, let go of this opportunity? Thus, they formed a group to look for Yuhan. After obtaining the method to make the will-o-wisp candle from Yuhan, he followed Yuhan's instructions and placed the will-o-wisp candle on the walls of the Underworld Palace as a source of illumination. The people from the Underworld Palace had tasted the sweetness of victory. Towards the ghost flame candle, he became more and more enthusiastic. More and more will-o-the-wisp candles were produced. Hearing Hell Palace's people's words, Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. Yuan? Ghost hand will you again? Chapter 3068. Mentioning this, Hell Palace's people's expressions all had slight changes. Following that, they looked at each other, their faces filled with a dilemma. After hesitating for some time, Hell Palace's people then opened their mouths. Ghost fire candle indeed can increase our ability, but ghost fire candle is made from a living person's resentment and vitality. The resentment is extremely strong, and if we're not careful, there's a possibility of being swallowed by ghost fire candle, becoming its food. When Hell Palace's people reached this point, their voices were slightly trembling. It could be seen that towards the unstable factor of ghost fire candle, they were fearful from the bottom of their hearts. That Lord Hell from before, had he been swallowed by ghost fire candle? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she asked her next guess. The people from the Underworld Palace immediately turned their gazes toward the direction of the sedan. How did you know? Indeed, that Lord Hell who had been saved by Yuhan and whose ability had increased greatly, had already been swallowed by ghost fire candle. They had personally witnessed ghost fire candle swallowing the former Lord Hell bit by bit in the dark green candle flame. How I know isn't important. What's important is, when did you discover that ghost fire candle would swallow you? Yiqing Luo continued to ask. Hell Palace's people's expressions congealed as they hesitated for a moment. Silence started to spread in Hell Palace. Yiqing Luo didn't rush them, only calmly and indifferently, waiting for Hell Palace's people's reply. In the entire Hell Palace, there was only Bai Mei's painful moans from the candle flame tearing her face and the hissing sound of the candle flame burning. There were no other sounds. Under this oppressive atmosphere, one of Hell Palace's people suddenly threw down the weapon in his hand as he cried out sharply, "We've obviously been schemed against by the Palace of Darkness. That damned Palace of Darkness, they even dare to scheme against us." That man raised his head as his gaze was filled with madness. The former Lord Hell, he was swallowed by ghost fire candle 3 days ago. 3 days ago, he was swallowed by ghost fire candle. When he said the last sentence, that man seemed to be gritting his teeth as every single word came out from the slits of his teeth. His hands clenched tightly into fists. That person called Yuhan said she came from Palace of Darkness. Furthermore, he had come on behalf of the Palace Master of Gloomy Palace to help the Underworld Palace. In exchange, the Underworld Palace must unconditionally agree to do one thing for the Palace of Darkness. For Hell Palace, They had done all kinds of atrocious things. He had personally witnessed the power of the will-o-wisp candle on the former Lord of Hell. Naturally, they agreed without hesitation. Yuhan, who was sent by the Palace of Gloom, had saved Lord Hell of the Underworld Palace at that time. She had also given Underworld Palace the method to raise their strength. To the Underworld Palace, this was indeed a great favor. A few days ago, Yuhan came to us and asked us to use the space explosion sorcery to devour a space in the mortal world. We agreed to it as a way to repay the favor to the Palace of Darkness. We didn't know that the people from the Palace of Darkness wanted to deal with you, madam. I don't know that the Lord Dizun is in the space that the Dark Abyss Palace wants us to swallow. The people from the Palace of Darkness didn't tell us anything. They only said that someone from the Miao tribe offended the second palace master of the Palace of Darkness and wanted to teach the Miao tribe a lesson. Everyone from the Underworld Palace looked at Xiaba and Leng Yen, who were lying on the ground. Chapter 3069. That bunch of grandsons from the Palace of Darkness. Not only did they want to get someone else to do their dirty work, they even lied to us. That person from Hell Palace was filled with hatred as he spoke. Ghost Fire Candle. That was a scheme of the Palace of Darkness. We created thousands of Ghost Fire Candles, and after lighting them up around the surroundings of Hell Palace, the entire Hell Palace was enveloped by it. Once these candles were lit up, there was no way to extinguish them. Initially, these Yin Qi were able to increase our abilities, but later on, the Yin Qi became more and more intense, as though it had suppressed our powers. Hell Palace's people were filled with hatred and fear as they looked at that side. At the scene where the candles covered by Mei. What happened to the previous Lord of Hell? Yiqing Luo asked again. Because this month's Lord of Hell's position was taken by Xieba while the previous Lord of Hell was in closed-door cultivation to snatch the position. The previous Lord of Hell was thinking of snatching back this position. So. Hearing the Hell Palace's people stuttering, Yiqing Luo's brows rose. So that previous Lord of Hell increased the absorption of the Yin Qi from the Ghost Fire Candle, causing the Yin Qi to corrode his body and later being swallowed by the Ghost Fire Candle. Am I right? Hell Palace's people lowered their heads, tacitly agreeing with Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes. No wonder Xiaba and Leng Yen seemed much more relaxed after they were carried into Hell Palace. They were probably planning to absorb the Ghost Fire Candle's energy to launch a huge counterattack. No wonder Old Lai and the rest of Hell Palace's people were able to swiftly recover their energy under the circumstances where they were seriously injured. And they were able to raise their battle power in a short period of time. All these were made use of the Ghost Fire Candle's energy. In this way, it made sense. Towards the cause and effect of the Hell Manor, Yiqing Luo had more or less guessed it. She might as well not bother to continue asking. She shifted her gaze onto Bai Mei. In her heart, she faintly had a new guess. Over at the Palace of Darkness, they had always liked to play some tricks in the dark. They looked for Hell Palace, absolutely not just to make use of Hell Palace's hands to kill DMO Xian and her. After all, if something really happened to DMO Xian in the Miao tribe, on the Imperial Palace's side or the powerhouse behind DMO Xian, if they wanted to seek revenge for DMO Xian, it was very easy to find out that it was the Dark Nether Palace. Therefore, getting someone else to do the dirty work might just be a superficial reason. In fact, there was another reason. This reason, it was very likely that it had something to do with the human skin that Bai Mei had changed into. She looked at the face that had completely separated from Bai Mei's. In Yiqing Luo's heart, there was a very ominous premonition. He had a feeling that this person's face was going to stir up trouble again. As expected, just as this thought surfaced in Yiqing Luo's mind, all of a sudden, Bai Mei let out a miserable shriek. Soon after, his body softly slid down the rock wall. Fresh blood permeated her entire body. It dyed her white chiffon dress red. When Bai Mei slid to the ground, she did not ask for help from her sister. Instead, he raised his hands, wanting to touch his face, but not daring to do so. My face. This is my face. You can't take my face away. she cried hoarsely, filled with despair. Chapter 30-70. To Bai Mei. Losing that face was even more terrible than death. She would rather die. She wasn't willing to lose her face. Bai Mei screamed in pain as her hands finally pressed on her face. Not sure if it was because of the flesh and blood on her hands, or because of the pain. Bai Mei screamed as she seemed to have lost all her strength and fell to the ground. Everyone's attention was not on Bai Mei. Instead, they were staring at the human face which was shrouded in countless green candlelight. That human face was not stained with a drop of blood after it fell off Bai Mei's face. This is... Bai Su stared at the human face as she frowned. What a heavy yin qi. Oh, as expected. Dmo Xian's eyes were deep and bottomless. The words that came out of his mouth were extremely light, but in the ears, it was filled with a dignified and cold temperament, which made one's heart skip a beat. Bai Su looked sideways at him. What do you know? Don't keep me guessing. Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes looked up at that human face, as his lips curled into an unfathomable smile. Bai Su was anxious as she urged. Why are you still acting mysterious? Can't you tell me what you know? The real motive of the Palace of Darkness is not to kill with a borrowed knife. Just at this moment, a young lady's clear and melodious voice was heard from the carriage. Bai Su's beautiful eyes lit up, and she simply gave up on asking Dmo Xian that sneak attack. Her spiritual body leaned towards the direction of the carriage and said, Little beauty, you and Dmo Xian are really a match made in heaven. Both of you are so smart. Tell me, what did you see? Hearing Bai Su's seductive tone and her weird anti-look, Yiqing Luo's eyes and lips twitched uncontrollably. She was speechless. Bai Su's pitiful sister had lost her face, and was about to die from excessive blood loss. Bai Su could actually stand in front of her and joke with her as if nothing had happened. Was she so sure that Bai Mei would not die? But Bai Su didn't care about Bai Mei's life or death. Yiqing Luo naturally wouldn't care. Bai Mei, who had lost her face and was about to become a cripple, could no longer stir up any waves. Moreover, after this incident, if Bai Su really wanted to spare Bai Mei's life, she would definitely make arrangements for Bai Mei. Yiqing Luo's gaze fell onto Bai Su, as she calmly opened her mouth to continue her words. Secluded Palace's motive is to borrow the hands of the Underworld Palace, to manufacture the ghost flame candle, to provide this human face with energy. What? Dark Secluded Palace. Dark Secluded Palace wants to make use of us to manufacture ghost flame candles. When Hell Palace's people heard Yiqing Luo's words, they were all shocked. Even though they had committed all sorts of atrocities, such as murder and skinning. However, to them doing such sinister things on their own was a form of entertainment. But if all of this was someone else's scheme, someone who was deliberately using them, those people from Underworld Palace simply couldn't accept this. Towards the reactions of those people from Hell Palace, Yiqing Luo wasn't interested to bother about them. She narrowed her eyes and stared at the human face carefully. This human face should be able to absorb enough energy soon. Who is the target of this human face? Her frivolous smile contained a hint of mockery. Dmo Xian's eyes darkened. Everyone only felt a gust of cold wind brushing past. That tall figure was already standing in the carriage, as his long arm drew back, pulling the young lady into his embrace. At the same time, Chapter 30-71. The target is actually me? Bai Su cursed in a very ungraceful manner. Her spiritual body shook and quickly avoided the human face. However, it was obvious that the human face had set its eyes on Bai Su. With a swift turn, it caught up with her. The dense yin qi was sinister and strange. This yin qi is really scary. Bai Su curled her lips and said, How many people's resentment and yin qi did it absorb to gather such dense yin qi? If I'm contaminated by it, I'm afraid my spiritual body will be destroyed. Xian. Yiqing Luo saw Bai Su being chased around by that human face. The green candlelight dragged out a trail of traces. She tugged Dmo Xian's sleeve. I am very safe in the enchantment. You go and deal with that human face first. She won't die. Dmo Xian didn't even bat an eyelid. If I save her, you will be jealous. Yi Qingluo. She just felt that. Bai Su should have a good relationship with him. If something happened to Bai Su in front of him, it would be his responsibility. Moreover, did she look like someone who would be jealous? Do I look like someone who's being unreasonable? Like. Apparently, Bai Su, who was escaping, also heard this sentence. She made a turn and rushed to the carriage. Dmo Xian, boy. Can't you have some virtue of respecting the old and cherishing the young? You want an old man like me to block the knife for your little beauty. Don't you feel embarrassed? Yes. Dmo Xian was decisive, his voice was cold. Bai Su gritted her teeth. Dmo Xian continued coldly. Admit that you are an old woman? F*ck. Bai Su was furious. Go and protect your little beauty. I'm not doing this anymore. Just as she finished her words, Bai Su's spirit body suddenly shook and disappeared in the air. The face that glowed with a dark green light missed its target. It swayed a few times in the air. That human face turned its face towards the direction of the carriage. Yi Qingluo's face was thick as she stared straight at her. The visual impact was quite terrifying. Yi Qingluo frowned. The human face's target is indeed me. Attacking Bai Su was just a cover. She wanted to use Bai Su to lure Dmo Xian out. The human face took the opportunity to attack her. Obviously, this human face had its own thoughts. Or perhaps, someone was secretly manipulating this human face? This thought made Yi Qingluo's expression congeal. She was just about to lift the veil of the carriage and sense the surroundings to see if there were any unfamiliar auras. Just as he moved, her waist was caught by the man's strong arm. Her back leaned against the man's broad chest. The elegant scent of sandalwood soothed her heart. Wait for me. Dmo Xian lowered his head and whispered into her ear. He caressed her hair gently with his large and thick palms. After that, he leaped out of the carriage and headed towards the human mask. Xian. Yi Qingluo frowned. The surroundings. She only managed to spit out 2 words. Yi Qingluo's voice paused. Her face was a little gloomy. She actually couldn't move. Yi Qingluo stared angrily at Dmo Xian's back. She was in the enchantment boundary. No one could plot against her. She couldn't move. It must be Dmo Xian's trick. Dmo Xian. Yi Qingluo shouted angrily. Why did you trap me? Dmo Xian's sleeves moved and purple light shone. The majestic and violent profound energy wrapped that human face. The dark green yin qi began to surge. Chapter 3072. 2 bursts of energy transformed into a huge light blade. As it kept on engulfing each other, the violent and terrifying strength qi roared and buzzed within the Hell Palace. Gravel flew everywhere as the candle flame flickered. This was a powerful pressure. Even those few people from the Hell Palace couldn't help but clutch their chests as they spat out blood. Not to mention those few crippled people who were lying on the ground without any chance to retaliate. When the 2 bursts of energy tangled to the brink of a volcanic eruption, on the rock wall, those strange ghostly green candle flame candles swayed and fell off the rock wall. The ghostly fire candle's speed was extremely fast. In just a few breaths' time, the ghostly fire candle had already rolled to the side of Xiaba and Leng Yan. The ghostly green candle flame instantly enveloped both of their bodies. Hiss hiss. The candle flame swayed violently, giving off an extremely pungent smell in the air. This time, the smell was extremely obvious. Yi Qingluo just took a sniff and she could smell the smell. A thick rotten smell. But a moment later, that ball of ghostly green candle flame swayed once again. On the ground, there were no signs of those 2 lumps of flesh and blood. Only their clothes were left, which proved that they indeed existed. This scene made the Hell Palace's people's faces turn paler. It's here again. The ghostly fire candle is swallowing living people again. Swish swish swish. After the ghostly green candle flame swallowed Xiaba and Leng Yan, the candle flame started to sway vigorously. As though it had absorbed a huge amount of energy, it started to dance wildly in joy. Hiss. Another sound of the candle flame swaying was heard. She saw the energy which was entangled with Dmo Xian, with a whoosh, the ghostly green glow scurrying. The ghostly green glow, instantly swallowed Dmo Xian's purple electric glow. Ah Xian. Yi Qingluo saw this and her heart became even more anxious. She wanted to move, but her four limbs were still restrained by an invisible force, totally unable to move. Immediately, Yi Qingluo became anxious. Ah Xian, the surroundings are filled with the ghostly fire candles Yin Qi. That human face skin relies on the Yin Qi to constantly increase its energy. As long as the ghostly fire candle doesn't extinguish, the human face skin will have an endless supply of energy. This was also the reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness chose the Underworld Palace. Because the madman here had killed too many people, and because the terrain was shady, the entire Hell Prefecture was quiet. The entire Hell Palace was filled with a gloomy aura. It was the most suitable place to make the wisp candles. It was also the most suitable place to cultivate Yin energy. The people of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness put the strange human face on Bai Mei's face. He used Bai Mei as a medium to transmit the human skin. All he had to do was send Bai Mei to the Underworld Palace. The human skin absorbed all the resentment and vitality of the ghost fire candle. That human face would become a weapon to kill without spilling blood. It could be said, the entire Hell Prefecture was now a magnetic field of human faces. The human face skin could continuously increase its energy, and it did not need to worry about running out of energy. Yi Qingluo's heart tightened. No matter how powerful Ah Xian was, he was still a human. There would also come a time when the energy would run out. Bang! Just as Yi Qingluo was looking on helplessly, that dark green glint started to expand, as it completely enveloped Dmo Xian's purple light, only to hear an exploding sound of the air vibrating. The dark green light was like pieces of shattered green crystals, as it shot out in all directions. The purple light was glistening. That tall and straight figure stood silently on the original spot, with his hands behind his back. The man was dressed in a purple robe, as the hem of his robe fluttered along with the strong wind, as though purple clouds were rolling. Just a glance. Chapter 3073. Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes were filled with a biting cold glint. His sleeves moved and a thick profound energy filled the air, rippling out circles after circles of profound waves. The dark green light which enveloped the human face skin seemed to have been squeezed by something, as it kept twisting and changing shape. That human face skin. It was only 5 steps away from the carriage. Through a layer of gauze, Yi Qingluo could clearly see that under the dark green light, that human face skin was twisted and squeezed. That was a kind of déjà vu feeling of a face being squeezed into a ball. The eyes, nose and mouth were all squeezed into a line. The surrounding candlelight swayed even more violently, as though it was going to burn the entire Hell Palace. The dark green light continued to sway. It added a bit of frightening treachery to this gloomy Hell Palace. The dark green light continued to scuttle towards the direction of the human face skin. But no matter how turbulent the Yin light was, recklessly providing energy to the human face skin, the twisted and squeezed feeling of the human face skin had not lessened. On the contrary, it became more and more twisted, as though it was about to curl into a ball. Gradually, that face's features could not be seen. On the contrary, Dmo Xian. His expression was cold and his peach blossom eyes had no emotions at all. A powerful and majestic aura was constantly being released from his body, but the expression on his face was still the same as before. It was as light as the wind and clouds, as though the consumption of energy to him was of no importance. 2 bursts of energy collided continuously in the air, giving out bursts of air exploding sound, just like what Yi Qingluo had speculated. The human face skin had relied on the Hell Palace to become its magnetic field, and with the Yin Qi provided by the ghost fire candle, it constantly replenished its energy and increased its energy, time and time again, trying to suppress the pressure created by Dmo Xian. But no matter how much the human face increased its energy, Dmo Xian was able to suppress the human face skin, making it unable to resist at all. After a long period of suppression, the human face skin apparently became agitated. The dark green light was like a hurricane once again, sweeping up a series of violent tornadoes, twisting and twisting the purple light which was suppressing it. Dmo Xian's eyes were deep, and one look, it was bottomless, profound and unfathomable, making one feel an inexplicable chill. He did not move. He allowed the tornadoes and hurricanes to wrap around his power. His purple robe was fluttering in the dark green wind. His ink-black hair also flew on his shoulders. A few breaths later, the human face skin also realized that its own agitation, to Dmo Xian, could not even stir up a single ripple. His face was a little stiff from anger. It was also the moment when the human face froze in anger. Dmo Xian's gaze suddenly froze. He who had not moved for a long time, suddenly flipped his palm. Waves of air surged and surged. The powerful profound energy was like a huge boiling wave. In an instant, it bound the human face. The human face suddenly let out a hissing sound. Then, the human face that was twisted into a ball began to emit green smoke. The surrounding yin light also began to scatter wildly. When Yiqing Luo saw this, her pupils constricted. She finally understood why Dmo Xian had been using his own profound energy to suppress the human face instead of directly taking action to get rid of the human face. Dmo Xian's suppression of human face. This caused the human face to become more and more anxious and uneasy. Once it was anxious, even if it was a human face without any vitality, it would also reveal a flaw. As long as there was a flaw in the human face's mental energy, Dmo Xian took this opportunity to strike. Chapter 3074. If the human face skin really had its own consciousness, controlling the human face skin, there was a possibility that there would be a chance to start from the human face skin, to find out the purpose of the human face skin, and the identity of the person behind the scenes. The secluded palace had planned so many things step by step. Yiqing Luo was really curious. What was the motive of the person behind the secluded palace? As a high-ranking person in the upper realm, to be able to hide himself under Jun Qinggu and by Su's investigation, his ability was definitely not to be underestimated. Why would he put in so much effort for a nirvana realm? Moreover, it wasn't that the person behind the scenes didn't know Dmo Xian's identity, but he still dared to go against Dmo Xian. It could be seen that that person was extremely confident, totally not worried that Dmo Xian would find out his identity. Hiss hiss. The sound that the human face skin made was getting more and more obvious. More and more green smoke was emitting from the human face skin. The green yin qi in the surroundings gradually dissipated. The human face skin kept struggling. His twisted facial features were extremely hideous and terrifying. Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes squinted slightly. His qi waves were monstrous, surging like waves. Just as Dmo Xian was preparing for the last strike, to completely cut off the source of the human face skin's mental power, the human face skin which was emitting green smoke suddenly gave out an extremely ear-piercing, hiss-hiss sound. Not knowing where the energy came from, that piece of human face which had curled up into a ball, directly broke through Dmo Xian's purple light barrier, and like a lightning, it charged towards the carriage. Just a distance of 5 steps away, with a speed as fast as lightning, almost in a blink of an eye, that human face skin had already charged out of the enchantment. The human face skin which broke through the obstruction, it had already opened up, revealing its facial features. Its hollow eyes, nose and mouth reflected a deep green light, looking extremely frightening. Dmo Xian's expression changed, his deep eyes turned cold. Lil Luo, or be careful. His figure moved, speedily moving towards the carriage. The maids who were guarding around the carriage saw this and quickly wanted to block in front of the carriage. But before they could move, the dark green light that came from all directions wrapped around their limbs, causing the 4 of them to be unable to move for a moment. When they quickly dealt with the yin light that was surging towards them, that human face had already penetrated through the enchantment as it headed straight towards Yiqing Luo's face. This series of events actually happened in the blink of an eye. Just as the human skin was about to cover his face, Yiqing Luo's fingers moved and the glower flame fan swiftly opened up, blocking in front of her. Dark force burst forth. Yiqing Luo's fingers flickered rapidly once again. The glower flame fan danced excitedly on her fingertips, as she swiftly counterattacked. But at this moment, pung, an earth-shattering noise resounded. The ground shook violently. Yiqing Luo only felt that her wrist was held by an extremely strong force. Immediately after, her delicate body was pulled and thrown into a chest that was filled with coldness. The faintly familiar smell made Yiqing Luo frown slightly, just as he was about to break free. However, a strong arm forcefully locked onto her waist. An ice-cold voice floated down from above. "Don't move." When this voice entered Yiqing Luo's ears, it made Yiqing Luo quivered as she completely woke up. Her eyes suddenly widened as she raised her head to look over. What entered her eyes was a cold and aloof side face, as though it was meticulously sculpted. Chapter 3075. When Yiqing Luo met that pair of icy cold eyes, she shuddered. "Zhu Wuxian, why are you here?" Wasn't the person in front of her Zhu Wuxian? He was dressed in a red robe, like a blazing fire, looking ostentatious and reckless. But the aura around him was cold and arrogant, and his imposing manner was extremely sharp, making one not dare to get close to him. One of his arms was tightly wrapped around her waist, while the other hand was bare-handed, blocking the human face skin. Human face skin? Yiqing Luo's struggle stopped as her eyes swiftly shifted onto the human face skin. Endless dark green light merged with the human face skin, as it wrapped around Zhu Wuxian's right palm. It was like a piece of human face skin, tightly sucking on Zhu Wuxian's hand. Zhu Wuxian had helped her to block the encroachment of the human face skin. But the scene which made Yiqing Luo's heart cursed even more. Diemo Xian was standing on the other side of the human face skin, which was opposite her. Directly opposite, less than 2 steps away. He was releasing his profound energy, blocking the human face skin's attack. Yiqing Luo. In front of the main wife's boyfriend. What should she do if she was hugged in another man's arms? Waiting online. It was urgent. In the current situation, she couldn't struggle. Zhu Wuxian, this lad, couldn't he be more self-aware and let go of her? If he wanted to save her, then save her. Why was there a need to be so touchy? Most importantly, in the earlier situation, she actually didn't need Zhu Wuxian to save her. She could handle it too. At this moment, she had to rack her brains again to coax her jealous boyfriend. Yiqing Luo wanted to cry, but the matter had already happened, so she could only brace herself to face it. After all, Zhu Wuxian had rushed out to save her at this moment. That was out of good intentions. "Let go of your hand." Diemo Xian's icy cold gaze was fixed on Zhu Wuxian's hand, which was wrapped around Yiqing Luo's waist. Zhu Wuxian shot a chilly glance at him, as his hand wrapped even tighter around her. Diemo Xian's face sunk as his profound energy was drawn from the human face skin, as his long arm swiftly stretched out towards Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxian's eyes narrowed slightly as he hugged Yiqing Luo tightly while his body swept backwards, avoiding Diemo Xian's hand. Zhu Wuxian. Diemo Xian's brows were tightly knitted as a cold glint flickered in his eyes, exuding a murderous intent. He speedily went up once again, trying to snatch Yiqing Luo back. But Zhu Wuxian obviously did it on purpose, hugging Yiqing Luo tightly, refusing to let go. Yiqing Luo was led by Zhu Wuxian as she turned left and right. She could feel that Diemo Xian's rage was rising continuously. She furrowed her eyebrows and suddenly raised her hand, her fingers grabbing onto Zhu Wuxian's shoulder. "Let me down." Just as she moved, she saw something from the corner of her eyes, and her expression changed drastically. "Zhu Wuxian, be careful of people's pride." When Diemo Xian withdrew his profound energy, that human face skin also knew that it was pincered from the front and back, and had no way to escape. Hence it might as well go all the way, as it directly pressed the human face skin onto Zhu Wuxian's arm. The skin of the human face tightly wrapped around Zhu Wuxian's palm. Zhu Wuxian frowned as his icy cold gaze swept past the human face skin. "Hurry and let go of me. First remove the human face skin from your hand." Yiqing Luo tried to pry his hand away. "No matter." Zhu Wuxian calmly spat out 2 words, as he still hugged her waist, without any intention to let go. That human face skin followed the dim green light, as it slowly merged into Zhu Wu Xian's skin. Chapter 3076. Zhu Wu Xian's eyelids drooped as his black pupils were deep and cold, as he stared fixedly into her eyes. That grave and stern face, magnified into Yi Qing Luo's pupils. His thin lips curled into a faint cold arc. Let me hug a little longer. Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian's voice wasn't considered very gentle, but as compared to his icy cold, stiff tone, it was considered much gentler, especially with that faint smile on his face. Yi Qing Luo only felt a layer of goosebumps all over her body. Her lips twitched a few times. Zhu Wu Xian, are you King sick? Yi Qing Luo couldn't take it anymore as she tugged Zhu Wu Xian's arm, which was covered by the human face skin, and exerted force. Her petite body left Zhu Wu Xian's embrace. Her 5 fingers swiftly locked onto Zhu Wu Xian's wrist, making use of the silver silk shot out from the glower flame fan in an attempt to prevent the human face skin and Zhu Wu Xian from merging. But Yi Qing Luo's speed was ultimately a step too slow. Just at the instance when the silver silk shot out, the human face skin had completely merged into Zhu Wu Xian's arm along his palm. Yi Qing Luo tugged on his arm as she gritted her teeth and scolded Zhu Wu Xian. Has your brain been kicked by a donkey? Can't you feel the danger of this human face skin? You're just going to allow this human face skin to enter your body and control you. Do you find it interesting? Yi Qing Luo was truly speechless towards Zhu Wu Xian. There was obviously a chance to stop the human face skin from merging. But Zhu Wu Xian didn't think much of it. She had to be suspicious. Was Zhu Wu Xian intentionally trying to make the human face skin merge with him? Just as Yi Qing Luo was going crazy, Zhu Wuxin's slightly amused voice rang in his ears. Very interesting. Interesting? Tell me, what's interesting about it? Yi Qing Luo was about to explode. Zhu Wu Xian's deep eyes gazed deeply at her. That gaze was mixed with a sliver of not obvious gentleness. Hugging you, smelling your scent, it's very interesting. Yi Qing Luo's face instantly turned black. Wasn't he being a little too honest? Suddenly, a powerful force locked onto her waist. She flung herself backward. She fell into a broad embrace. The man's domineering aura enveloped her. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and saw a face which was even darker than hers. Xian. Yi Qing Luo coughed softly as she softened her tone and called out to him while her arms circled around his waist. Don't be jealous, don't be jealous. You're the only one in my heart. The most important thing for us now is to retrieve the human face from Zhu Wu Xian's hands. I can't take it out. Dmo Xian's face was icy cold as he spoke in a cold voice. Yi Qing Luo circled Dmo Xian's neck with one hand as she kissed him on the cheek. Alright Xian, he was trying to save me, which was why he gave others the chance to take advantage of him. You don't want me to owe him a favor, right? Dmo Xian's arms suddenly tightened, pressing her tightly against his chest. After the human face skin fuses with the human body, there is only one way. The human face skin voluntarily leaves. The man's low and hoarse voice floated from above. Voluntary? Let people's faces fall off willingly? The battle between the human face skin and Dmo Xian had already injured its mental power. Now it could stay in Zhu Wu Xian's body to nourish. So how could it possibly leave willingly? Then Zhu Wu Xian Yi Qing Luo really wanted to hammer Zhu Wu Xian, that brat, to death. The human face skin was such a dangerous thing, and he actually didn't have any vigilance at all. Chapter 3077. Yi Qing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms as she walked a few steps towards Hell Palace's side. Yi Qing Luo wanted to turn back several times to take a look at Zhu Wu Xian, but she was held back by Dmo Xian's arm, stopping her movements. Xian. Yi Qing Luo's little hand hugged Dmo Xian's waist as she called out softly. That human face is really dangerous. If Zhu Wu Xian is controlled by that human face, then what should we do? It was no wonder that Dmo Xian was so angry. If it was her, seeing Dmo Xian being hugged by another woman in front of her, no matter what the reason was, She was definitely more irritable than Dmo Xian. He would even tear apart that woman who had hugged Dmo Xian. So it was natural for Dmo Xian to be jealous and angry. But this was the logic behind it. However, Chu Wuxin was trying to save her, which was why this shameless person had the opportunity to take advantage of him. If she really didn't care, she would be too cold-blooded. Being manipulated by a shameless person, then kill him. Dmo Xian spat out a sentence that was neither cold nor warm. There was even a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. Ah Xian. Yi Qingluo's voice turned coquettish as she circled her arms around his neck. You can't say it like that. Before there is any evidence to prove that Zhu Wuxin's appearance is related to human face, if he dies, it will be because he died to save me, and I will owe him a life. Little Luo. The man's low and hoarse voice sounded a little gloomy. Yi Qingluo, who was interrupted, raised her head in a daze. She raised her head. Her chin was held by the man's slender fingers. The man's peach blossom eyes were flowing with a cold glint. The ripples were as deep as an abyss, with no end in sight. I really don't like it when you use such a tone to talk to me, because of him. Yi Qingluo's pupils contracted slightly. I don't like hearing his name from your mouth. His extremely possessive words made Yi Qingluo's long eyelashes tremble uncontrollably. Her eyes met his. After a long while, he slowly closed his eyes and lowered his eyelids. Yes, think from another perspective. She absolutely did not like to hear any other woman's name from Dmo Xian's mouth. Even she herself could not accept this. What right did he have to force Dmo Xian to accept it? Because I love you too much. So he cared too much. Because he cared too much. Therefore no one else could get their hands on it. I'm sorry. Yi Qingluo lowered her eyes and apologized in a low voice. Dmo Xian's hand slid away from her chin. One of his hands was still on her shoulder. Yi Qingluo lowered her head and couldn't see the man's expression. He could only hear a soft sigh of helplessness above his head. Just as the atmosphere between the two of them gradually warmed up, Zhu Wuxian, who was standing on the original spot, gazing deeply at Yi Qingluo, suddenly opened his mouth. My hand hurts a lot. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his voice, nor did he sound like he was in pain. Yi Qingluo raised her head slightly as she glanced sideways at Zhu Wuxian. Yi Qingluo, my right palm, is extremely painful. Zhu Wuxian was extremely serious as he repeated this sentence. Yi Qingluo's vision drooped downwards as she looked at Zhu Wuxian's right hand, which was hanging by his side. That was the hand that was fused into the human skin's body just now. Pain. Was it because the human skin had started to invade Zhu Wuxian's body? If you don't come over and help me up, I might die from the pain. Zhu Wuxian continued, speaking expressionlessly. Yi Qingluo's petite body stiffened slightly. Chapter 3078. Her heart trembled. She shut her eyes fiercely as she hugged Dmo Xian's waist. Let's go back to the palace. There was no need for her to hesitate any further. As a woman who had already decided to stay for life and had a fiancé, she indeed shouldn't have given Zhu Wuxian any hope. She couldn't do it herself to accept a lady who adored Dmo Xian by his side. She couldn't ask Dmo Xian to do it. She couldn't be that selfish. Towards Zhu Wuxian. Right from the start, she had already expressed it very clearly. But Zhu Wuxian continued to do things his own way, ignoring her wishes. He had to pester her endlessly. She could only say her apologies. To her, no one was more important than Ah Xian. Yi Qingluo held Dmo Xian's arm, and was about to leave. The man next to her stopped in his tracks, with no intention to leave. Yi Qingluo raised her head in puzzlement as she looked at Dmo Xian. Ah Xian, what's the matter? Dmo Xian's slender fingers caressed her cheek. His narrow peach blossom eyes were filled with a deep glint as his thin lips curled into a smile. His eyes seemed to be filled with a pool of spring water. Silly lass. He sighed softly as his low and hoarse voice was filled with unspeakable pampering. I stopped you because I wanted to see what kind of place I occupy in your heart. Dmo Xian's voice became deeper. A faint magnetism passed through her eardrums. It numbed Yi Qingluo's heart. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened slightly as she looked at Dmo Xian's charming eyes as she blinked. Dmo Xian's arms tightened as he hugged her petite body tightly in his arms. He rested his chin on her shoulder. Getting closer. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the man's warm breath, spraying on her skin. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled slightly, as though something was tightly clasping her heart. It made her unable to describe what feeling she was feeling. She pursed her pink lips as she was about to say something. The man's thin lips came closer as his voice became softer. Sorry. I know I'm wrong. I shouldn't have tested your feelings towards me. She could tell. There was a hint of caution in his voice that was hard to detect. That tone, which was filled with guilt, made the words which Yiqing Luo wanted to say stuck in her throat. Seeing that Yiqing Luo remained silent, Dmo Xian's tone became even more aggrieved, as his arms wrapped even tighter. It's my pride causing mischief, it's my imagination that ran wild, testing your heart, Lil Luo. I really know I'm in the wrong, can you forgive me? Towards Yiqing Luo's feelings towards him. It wasn't that Dmo Xian wasn't confident. It was just that Zhu Wuxin had appeared. This caused him to be extremely displeased. Because I love you too much. That was why he couldn't help but probe. Hearing Dmo Xian's slightly coquettish tone, Yiqing Luo didn't have any other thoughts in her heart at this moment. Dmo Xian was probing. It would indeed make her feel very uncomfortable. But this was also because of Zhu Wuxin's appearance. Other men, such as Gu Jingyu. Because he knew that she had no connection with Gu Jingyu or any other man. There was no possibility of further development. But Zhu Wuxin was different. The person whom Zhu Wuxin adored was the former Yiqing Luo. After that, he saved her time and time again. It could be said that no matter if it was the promise in the past, or the current life-saving feelings, she was unable to really treat Zhu Wuxin coldly. Chapter 3079. If she put herself in his shoes, she thought that she would definitely make the same attempt. Although Zhu Wuxian was a busybody and reaped what he sowed, but after all, it was because he helped you to block the attack from the human face. Dmo Xian continued to speak. His tone was filled with disdain toward Zhu Wuxian. Dmo Xian shot a glance at Zhu Wuxian in disdain, and as though declaring, he kept the young lady in his arms. If he really dies here today, I'm afraid that you will remember him for the rest of your life. Hearing the man's childish words, Yiqing Luo was speechless. But a certain softness in her heart was slowly covered by warmth. In the knowledge of love, she and Dmo Xian were both beginners. They had to take one step at a time to slowly learn the lesson of love. How could she bear to blame Dmo Xian? Between the both of them, all sorts of pink bubbles started to spread. Zhu Wuxian's chilly voice broke the atmosphere. "Amen, if I can make her remember me for the rest of her life, it's not bad to die here." Yiqing Luo. What on earth was this rascal trying to do? Dmo Xian's expression sunk. His icy cold gaze looked towards Zhu Wuxian as he sneered. "If you want to die, this lord can fulfill your wish, but absolutely not now." Zhu Wuxian's chilly eyes met with Dmo Xian's as his lips curled upwards. Both parties were aggressive and no one was willing to give in. Not too far away, Ale and Afeng were already dumbstruck as they looked at their own master in a daze. Previously they had heard Afeng talk about how the overlord had thrown away his high and mighty overlord status and face in front of their future mistress, turning into a loyal dog. They had always felt that Afeng had been bribed by their future mistress, hence he would speak up for her. But today, they had seen it with their own eyes. Then they understood. Afeng was absolutely not exaggerating. The overlord was in front of their future mistress. He didn't care about his face at all. Ever since they could remember, they had been following the overlord's identity for more than 10 years. This was the first time they saw the overlord being so gentle, so childish. Looked like the day when their future mistress would become the mistress of the imperial palace was not far away. Cough. Yiqing Luo looked at the atmosphere between the both of them and coughed lightly. "The both of you. How much longer do you intend to stare at me?" Dmo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo's slender waist tightly as he snorted coldly, and retracted his gaze. Zhu Wuxin's eyes were cold. He slowly moved his gaze away. Then he let out a soft snort from his nostrils. Yiqing Luo. These two people were really like a pair of enemies. Who knows, they might even be able to develop a romantic relationship between two lovers. This thought made Yiqing Luo look at Dmo Xian and Zhuwu Xian. Her gaze was filled with a strange emotion. She shook her head and tossed those messy thoughts out of her head. All right. The most important thing now is to deal with the matter of the human face skin. If the human face skin remains in Chu Wuxin's body, it will ultimately be a hidden danger. She raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian. To prove my innocence, I won't check on his arm, so you go ahead. Dmo Xian shot a disdainful glance at Zhuwu Xian. I don't want. Zhuwu Xian opened his mouth coldly. Yiqing Luo, I'm doing this to save you. You should take care of me personally. Ha. Dmo Xian gave a cold laugh as he released Yiqing Luo's waist and walked directly towards Zhuwu Xian. Chapter 3080. It's not up to you whether you want it or not. Dmo Xian sneered. Zhuwu Xian, you'd better get it straight. Lil Luo is this sovereign's woman. Zhu Wuxin's expression was cold. So what? She used to be mine, and she will be mine in the future. Dmo Xian's gaze turned cold. Stop your wishful thinking. A man who only knows how to pester, Lil Luo, or will hate you even more. It doesn't matter if I hate her. Zhu Wuxin didn't care. As long as she's by my side, that's enough. Do you think you have that chance? Dmo Xian sneered. The murderous intent in his eyes kept surging. Yiqing Luo, who was standing by the side, looked at the both of them. Because of checking the facial skin of the arm man, they were pushing and dodging each other. Then both sides drew their swords, and it seemed like they were about to fight at any moment. Yiqing Luo felt that these two men should be hard to get along with each other peacefully, right? It was better to quickly settle the matter of human face and send Zhu Wuxin away. She coughed again, interrupting the electric current between them. Zhu Wuxin, the human face skin has just entered your body. It's still possible to take it out now. Hearing Yiqing Luo's voice, the two of them who were at loggerheads shifted their sights onto Yiqing Luo. Zhuwu Xian narrowed his cold eyes and his brows rose as he stretched out his right hand towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Take you can. But I want you to help me. Dmo Xian's face immediately turned black. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. He really knew how to take advantage of others. Glancing at Dmo Xian's foul expression, Yiqing Luo naturally couldn't really go up to help Zhuwu Xian. She pursed her pink lips and shook her head solemnly. The human face mask's target is me. If I help you take out the human face mask, I'll be giving it another chance to attack me. She paused for a moment, then continued seriously. Xian is the best choice because his power is enough to suppress human skin. Zhuwu Xian's expression turned colder. The coldness between her brows seemed to have thickened a little. His lips were tightly pursed into a straight line. Seeing the displeasure on Zhu Wuxin's face, Dmo Xian was delighted. He raised his peach blossom eyes. If you don't want to die, give me your hand. Zhu Wuxin did not move. He pursed his lips tightly, and his whole body exuded a cold aura. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she emphasized her tone. Zhuwu Xian, the reason why you were taken advantage of by that shameless person is because of me, so I can stand here and patiently advise you. But I've already done my best to advise you. If you really want to die, if you really want to be controlled by someone else's face, then it has nothing to do with me. You won't care about me anymore? He abruptly raised his head, as his cold eyes met Yiqing Luo's gaze. Yes. Yiqing Luo replied coldly. Zhu Wuxin's eyes trembled, and a piercingly cold light flowed in his eyes. There was a moment of silence. He raised his right hand and stretched it out in front of Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian gave a cold laugh as he mercilessly pulled Zhuwu Xian's wrist over. Then, the wind from his palm moved, and the gathered profound energy seeped into Zhu Wuxin's arm, searching for the movement of the human face. His actions were fast, ruthless, and accurate. It totally didn't give Zhuwu Xian any time to adapt. A series of actions. although Zhu Wuxian didn't make any sound. But from the cold sweat on his forehead and the tightly creased brows, it was obvious that he was enduring the pain. Yi Qingluo looked at the both of them anxiously. It was until roughly 1 incense's time later, Dmo Xian released Zhu Wuxian's arm. Chapter 3081. Zhu Wuxian seemed as though he had lost all his energy as he staggered backwards with a pale face. His right arm hung loosely by the side of his body. His cold eyes lifted up slightly, coincidentally facing Yi Qingluo's figure. He looked at Yi Qingluo as he stretched out his little hand and pressed it gently on Dmo Xian's chest. That devastatingly beautiful face was filled with worry. He heard Yi Qingluo asking Dmo Xian in a low voice if he felt uncomfortable anywhere. Yi Qingluo's heart was filled with Dmo Xian alone. Zhu Wuxian lowered his eyes as he fixed his gaze on his right arm. The one who was injured was obviously him, wasn't it? The one who should be cared for should be him, wasn't it? Wang. Yi Qingluo's first concern was Dmo Xian? Was this the difference between love and not love? Zhu Wuxian only felt that the air seemed to have solidified. He even found it difficult to breathe. Every breath he took, his heart felt as though it was being gripped tightly, so painful that his face turned pale. Just as Zhu Wuxian felt that his heart was being torn apart, eroding him, a voice suddenly rang beside his ear. Zhu Wuxian, is your arm in pain? Why are you sweating so much? This voice was like the sound of nature as it instantly soothed the tearing pain in his heart. It was like a warm current, filling up his heart. This strange feeling made Zhu Wuxian feel extremely unfamiliar. But when he raised his eyes, his pupils reflected the young lady's devastatingly beautiful face. He totally didn't have any sense of resistance. Seeing Zhu Wuxian staring at himself, not saying a word for some time, Yi Qingluo's slender brows creased tightly as she got a little anxious. Zhu Wuxian? Have you turned silly from the pain or something? Why aren't you saying anything? Zhu Wuxian's eyelashes moved. His cold eyes were flowing with light. He collected his eyes and slowly puffed out a gust of air from his nostrils. Amen. This gust of air was simply too soft. Yi Qingluo didn't hear it clearly as she looked at him in puzzlement. Zhu Wuxian repeated, my right hand is in pain. Earlier when he tugged my hand, he used a lot of force. I suspect that he wants to destroy my right hand. As he was saying that, Zhu Wuxian's icy cold gaze looked towards Dmo Xian. Yi Qingluo expressed that to use such a calm as still water tone to complain, this feeling, was really awkward. Zhu Wuxian lowered his head again, and looked at his right hand that could not be moved. He said, if you don't take care of me, my right hand might be broken by him tomorrow. Yi Qingluo. She was just about to express that it was rare for Zhu Wuxian to say such a long speech. Then he heard Zhu Wuxian's next sentence. Yi Qingluo facepalmed speechlessly. Young man, isn't this your motive? He could even complain to her with a straight face, rubbing his nose against her face. It could be seen that Zhu Wuxian was not really about to die of pain like he said. She simply retracted her gaze and looked at Dmo Xian. Ah Xian, can the human face be taken out? I can't take it out. Dmo Xian held her in his arms as his tone was cold. I'm not joking. The only way to make the human face skin leave the body is if the human face skin willingly leaves the body. Even if I use my strength to force it, if it's not willing, the one who gets hurt will only be Zhu Wuxian. Still, it couldn't be done? Could it be that if the human face skin was unwilling to leave, then Zhu Wuxian would have to suffer the erosion of the human face skin? If it was controlled by that human face skin. She wasn't sure if she could do anything to Zhu Wuxian. Furthermore, you're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.